Welcome to the Sidebar, a book club for Jungle Boys. I'm David.
I'm Gabe, the grayed out gooner.
And I'm Capitalissimo, and I am permanently feral. And joining us today is Tom Will, the poetry editor for Apocalypse Confidential and author of the recently released Pale Townie.
Yeah, tickled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Coming on, Tom.
To quote Ezra Pound, let us have commerce between us. So
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you because we are not while we are all avid readers and great fans of fiction, we feel like we needed to fill the gap in our poetry knowledge with an expert from the scene. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, we really can't tell the difference between a pentameter and a thermometer.
I'm not going to be handing out pens and paper. We're not going to be scanning poetry and diagramming sentences. But no, it's a good thing because this is somewhat how I got my cushy Apocalypse Confidential gig. Was I was just kind of Twitter pals with Dear Blauergeist, who's the editor in chief. Jake is his name, and he said he was doing the mag, and I was like, hey, how about I do poetry? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. I don't. He just was like, yeah. I just happened to be there.
So the beauty of being a poetry expert in these circles is no one will ever challenge you because we all confess we have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's honestly really that's really true. Yeah, Twitter, friends, family. You can just say, yeah, I'm reading a biography on Gerard Manley Hopkins, and they just kind of look 1,000 miles faster. You can get away with it.
And we're back today late and over budget, which is only appropriate because we're here to cover Passage Prize Volume 2, Rewilding. So in terms of the format, I guess we'll probably have the episode title make this clear. This one's a bit of a beast to tackle. Just these wilderness puns just keep coming. I'm sorry.
No pun intended.
Yeah. They've been unleashed.
Stop.
Because there's a lot of content there. We feel like it's a pretty important project generally. Not that we're going to be, putting a soft touch on anything. I think we're going to be very, very honest with our thoughts on everything. But we're splitting it 2 parts. Today, thanks to Tom being here, we're planning to do the first 100 pages and the poetry. Next time, we're going to be doing the back 100 or so pages. I think it's going to be some more fiction and then a lot of the nonfiction. And there's also going to be some art sprinkled in there. So we're pretty much just going to go from cover to cover and just talk through it. I don't know if you guys had any, thoughts about the project generally going into it. Anything you were, intimidated with, back into the episode or, caveats you all had?
Not particularly, not for me.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of an intimidating project because everyone who has a hand in the dissident art scene is involved in this project, right? So, we have now more than ever an incentive to be, moderate in our criticisms. So I was very afraid I was going to dislike a lot of this. So I have been pleasant. I was pleasantly surprised. I do have some niggles, but overall I liked this. So
a very finely crafted word, niggles.
I had a similar feeling, Cap, fortunately, I think we're all blessed. The Sidebar boys have the armor of our natural high disagreeableness.
And having nothing to lose.
I don't know, dude. 100 subscribers. I've called my way up from 0. I can't give up, those 3 that will unsubscribe if I insult their favorite East Celebs
started from
choice.
The bottom.
Yeah.
Still started from the bottom, still basically at the bottom.
At the bottom. I'm one crust layer up.
If I could throw in my own little caveat. So, full disclosure, I did submit poetry, although I don't remember what the hell I even sent, to the first Passage Prize. I believe the one that Curtis was doing. Again, full disclosure, I was the first person to ever write an essay about Curtis Yarvin's poetry. albeit I don't think much will come of it or shall come of it, but I did. But he didn't choose me all the same. And then of course I, cast the Passage Prize into the outer darkness, and I called it the Ass Age Prize, and I put it, all these really clever things, but he has reached out and said, "Hey, how about you read it?" And I said, "Yeah, why the hell? Let's read it." Mm-hmm. And I was, overall super pleasantly surprised. I think, I have another caveat. I have my own personal qualms about, calling anything dissident. It's kind of, if you tell me where the work is going to go, well, why do I want to read it? I already know where it's going to go. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I'm sure I'm not the first or last person to say that, but I have to say I was really pleasantly surprised. There's a lot of solid stuff in here, and I was kind of reading it thinking like, okay, I edit for a magazine. This is kind of like one of the specials we do at Apocalypse Confidential. Where we do these specials periodically. Valentine's Day, war, JFK's assassination. We do a couple every year. And we print out like 500 pages of subs and whatnot. And I said, okay, well, let's just kind of treat it like that. Just come into it fresh, and it was really good. I got to say, it was a high batting average, and there's a lot of good stuff in here. So I'm glad I got back into it.
All right, so no further ado, let's fuck this duck, gentlemen. And we're going page 1 to page 100 or so. Actually, Gabe, you mentioned before we started that you wanted to talk through the intro. Did you have any particular?
Well, the intro is the palette setter. If you want to go straight to the text, that's fine. But the intro basically goes with the theme and the mood it's trying to evoke. It's about re-energizing life. It talks about decay of the modern world. Of course, the usual decay of the modern world, and it mentions AI and the digitalization. And can we have a virile, primal energy back? Again, that's the whole point of being titled Rewilding, with the autistic-looking jaguar on the cover. The whole point is that it's supposed to bring back the natural vitalism and energy of man. And I think, based on the introduction, it actually kind of flows perfectly, because each story, for the first 150 pages, spoiler alert, we will be doing the second part as well, but each part deals with the idea of energy, and either the convulsion of energy, the death of energy, or the renewal of energy. So it sets up the thematic tone and theme throughout the entire novel.
Yeah, no JO crystals, but it definitely has like a theme of energy. And I'll stand for the cover. Actually, I know you're anti the jaguar. I love that jaguar. I
actually think if we're going to criticize anything about Passage Prize, we cannot criticize the production of this book, because I really like the design, and I think that. I mean, the binding is nice. It is a hand stitched book. Nice. Good cloth binding, nice marbled paper, inner covers, and the jaguar piece here is an attached print on the front of the book, which I am a little concerned about, as well as the gilding on the rear cover that says "We are going to win." In a very in the most certain possible way of presenting it, surrounded in gold. I'm a little concerned about the longevity of this stuff, and so I have wrapped this book in Mylar,
the collector,
to preserve it. Yeah, well, yeah, and I am as I do with all of my first editions. And
it is a
like
chronicle.
There's something pretty cool. Just today, actually, they announced the Passage Prize 3, and the theme was basically a direct follow-on to Rewilding.
Survival.
Yeah, exactly, survival, and talking about semi-permanence, survival. So I like that a lot, that they're kind of building as a sort of this sense of growth between the issues.
I really like the cover myself. Oh, sorry, I was just...
Oh, no, I was...
No, go for it.
Tom. No.
Jump in and don't apologize.
If you don't talk over Gabe, he will just keep going. So
listen, don't be. I'm loyal to guests. Our guests can continue.
Thank you much. I was just saying, I like the cover a lot, and I think I've only been around 3 or 4 years trying to get published, but immediately you come, the cover art and layout and logistics of several small presses immediately rush out to greet you, and half of them are ugly as goddamn sin. So it's nice to see this. I thought it looked fantastic. I think it's a good cover. So.
No, the first thing I saw with the cover was, y'all know that lit meme, the tiger? I thought it was purposeful reference, like, yes, the tiger. Yeah. The tiger is out. Yeah, that was the first thing.
Is that how the tiger's out of his cage?
That's the first thing that came up. Sadly, that poem was not included in the collection. So.
That could have been the cover, frankly.
Well, that fifth grader did not submit. Well, you must submit.
Depending on how old he is now, maybe he is. Maybe he's Lomez. We never saw a date on that picture.
That's where it came from.
Rewilding.
Yeah. He could be current poetry judge and Passage Prize 1 winner Arthur Powell.
Yeah. So. It was structured a lot less autistically than I would personally done it or expected. In terms of it varies and alternates. So we're going to have 2 brief poems here, and then a big chunk of fiction, and there's poems interspersed throughout, art interspersed throughout. So yeah, it's kind of, which is nice. It's a nice palate cleanser.
So there's also there's art, there's visual art interspersed throughout the book, and there's in the pages that aren't otherwise particularly themed to the story or the poem, they have used some pigs. And as you go through the book, the pigs become increasingly feral until at the end of the book, it is a wild boar. It goes from a pink, succulent, unthreatening looking hog to a completely grizzled boar with blood stains on its muzzle.
It has been rewild.
So.
A brief aside: Have you guys ever seen it? It's a beautiful piece of art by Andrew Wyatt's son, Jamie Wyatt, and it's just a big fucking pig. It's like one of my favorite American pieces of art. It's fantastic.
I have not, but my wife's favorite piece of visual art is what is it? Sarah's World.
Oh.
By Wyatt.
That's
The woman in the field.
Christina's World. Christina's World.
It's
yes,
it's his sister with she has muscular issues. She's on the side of the hill. And, if anyone wants to see that, though, you can simply type in Jamie Wyatt hog. It's at a fantastic museum called the Brandywine in Chadsford, Pennsylvania, and I think pretty close to there. You can also there's a Frank Frazetta museum. So if you want to have a real fucking rollicking time, go see Jamie Wyatt's pig, and it has a lot of Wyatt's father's illustrations at the Brandywine. Like it has he did all those illustrations for like Treasure Island, and all those adventure books, so you can see the original paintings there, and they're fucking fantastic. Like almost all of the things.
That is a powerful looking hog.
It is.
There's a real hog there. A complete.
The story
unit.
behind it is it broke into his studio and ate all of his paints, and he thought it was gonna die, and he was really mad at it, and then he was like, "Oh, the hog's gonna live," and so he painted it, but it was just kind of sitting there for a while,
It's the Bronze Age hog set.
Amazing. Hog maxing.
You gotta be hog maxing.
You gotta be hog maxing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just hang around and just make asides like that for 3 hours. If that's if that's a day's work, I'll do it.
Yeah. All right. So getting to it, we have 2 poems coming up. Actually, before then, there is a beautiful photo of these. What would you call these? Hyperborean mountains, Cap?
Misty mountains.
These? I would.
They're cozy. They haven't been re-hyperboreanized yet.
It is, and the piece is called, or the photograph is called "Foggy Hollow" by Vaughn O.
Fitting.
So, yeah, R.I.P. Ricky Vaughn. Not
Pour
dead,
one out for
just in prison.
Still.
Rest in prison.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Do not free our boy.
All right, and then Tom, please save us from ourselves. We have two for you here. The first one, Tidal Bore by what's that? Urquhart.
Urquhart.
Yep.
Consequently, one of my I'll use your word. One of my niggles with these pieces, where the pieces were unassailable, but I hated the names. Or not hated, but I just thought they were below their potential, so to speak. I like to think of the creation story. I like to think of Adam naming the world again. And if you're a pseudonymous poet, well, not that I am. Tom Willis is my Christian name. It's on my birth certificate. But if you are a pseudonymous poet, not only do you get to, name your world, you get to name yourself. So I don't know. Give yourself 2 names. You're worth it and all that. But all that being said, all cattiness, all negging aside, I guess this is negging. Cause this was one of my favorite pieces in the whole thing, and I can totally understand why they put it first. I don't know, I thought it was wonderful. Title Bore, at least as far as I could understand it, is a pun on Bore, B-O-R-E. This is spelled Bore, like a boar with tusks and what have you. But a tidal bore is a river phenomenon where there's a river close to a tidal body of water, and which I had to look up. I didn't know this.
Where it flows backwards.
Yes, it flows backwards, exactly. You have this established piece of river, and it's essentially, so we all, okay. But it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. Poetic devices are present and lovely. I plow the field of herons, lift skirts of swans. That lift skirts of swans, that was my first circle. I opened up the pen and circled it. But just, there's a voice here, there's someone writing, and you can imagine someone interesting writing this. I'm not one of those voiceless people that thinks that a poem should, just be a mask you put on or take off. I think this is a really fantastic, voice, and I'd like to read more from this person. On the back of the page, and for all the poems, I should say, at least for most of them, I was trying to sort of create context, within American poetry, because that's mostly what I'm concerned with, like personally, what I like to read, and what makes me want to write poetry.
Right.
And I was comparing this, comparing in the sense of like a goddamn cheese board. If you like this, you might like this.
Try the Camembert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was comparing this to Marianne Moore's A Graveyard, which is a fantastic poem about the ocean, the ocean being like the graveyard, obviously. In that she talks about the bell buoys, and I appreciated his earth eager alliteration. But yeah, I don't know, I liked it a lot. It made sense to me immediately. It had a lyricism, and by lyricism I mean poetry that sounds good aloud, or even sung. A lyric. Did you guys like this one?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this one, actually, by itself. I thought the piece with the boar and the next piece following it was a good set of twins. And the idea of twin set of morals about beast and man, of vitalism and energy, there's a duology or a dyad going on through the entire piece. But with I did not catch the reference to a river flowing backwards. That is actually completely new to me.
I mean, the whole thing is. I don't mean to diminish it because I do like this poem, but yeah, the whole thing is a pun on that, where the pig is the river, or the pig is the phenomenon.
That is is a wonderful virtue of this and of good poetry in general, though, is it has a certain holographic quality where you have layers of things, and you can appreciate them with as many layers as you're aware of, right, or as many as you want to invent. So considering it just as Boar, B-O-A-R, is still completely viable. Which is what's so nice about it. A fantastic sort of guide to writing poetry is Ezra Pound's ABCs of Reading, and he essentially calls poetry charged language in that, and I think this is a great example of charged language.
Sure.
Just
and I agree. I think it sets up the collection really well, because it has these level of understanding where you have this beast that's almost Deep's Ravager. It's an almost
antediluvian,
primal. It's very primal, but it's also like there's a slightly, not explicitly or lurid, sort of sexual component to the virility of this effect. And it's also it is dangerous, but it's also nutrient giving, because it says, there's always a give and take,
right? And this
right?
is this is
it will say thing like boatmen are wary, horsemen are wary, children delighted or drowned. And it's for this they give tribute, blades bent into bracelets, bronze shining from the stirred up silt. So it's directing, it's providing like the richness of the soil and the earth through this sort of unstoppable disruption of the natural, of the usual, I guess, flow.
I want to mention for several reasons. One, mention all the interesting shit at the start, and two, throughout the poetry in this collection, there's a really refreshing reliance on puns. Did you guys notice that? There's a lot of puns running throughout the poetry.
Throughout the entire fiction, it's punific.
Fantastic! And this is something that's been sort of sticking in my craw in regards to poetry, because I read a really interesting. There was an American poet named Jack Spicer that I like a lot, and he was a linguist and just pretty well read, to put it mildly. And his opinion was that puns will last the test of time more than rhymes will. And so he would sooner use a pun than he would use rhyme to convey his sense of what a poem is. So I thought that was really interesting to see that theme throughout this, pun and alliteration, a good sense of alliteration. Two very old, poetic traditions, as old as the Seafarer, and, I really like that. I really like it.
Well, and it ties into the flowing backward, because it's the entire ethics or even religion or spiritual belief of this novel. The whole point of Rewilding is a sense of archaeofuturism, going backward and through the modern. The only way to go through modernity is to go through modern by looping back into the past and hammering it through that way. So it's a fusion.
The conspiracy of the future and the past.
Yeah,
Right.
You could make it this single poem is sort of the single point. This whole thing can kind of come out. The whole collection can,
and with the two pigs at the bottom too. By the way, notice the two pigs, which they also go on their journey. It's the fusion of the word and the image. It's multiple times, multiple big stories. They're always fused with an image.
Yeah, very apt opening. All right, that's the first 20 words. So we've made it. Yes. Next up, man was born. Well, I guess we already somewhat discussed this. In terms of the thematic pairing.
I will say I didn't care for this one.
Really, I love this one.
You guys, interestingly, you guys put these right together. I don't know. I found it. Oh, how to not sound like a codger.
Didactic. That's one of our favorite $5 words here.
No, and I took a couple community college workshops, and I always come off like an asshole in those too, because the only way I can think to describe why I don't like something is not particularly constructive. This reminded me of, and again, if anyone's seen this, God bless you. This reminded me of what's the movie with the Irish guys in the peacoats and they have the fucking tattoos and killing the mob in Boston? Jesus Christ! Saints. Yeah, I've seen it I saw it 200 times before I turned 22. You think I would, fucking know it? The second one has this dream sequence with Rocco, and he's like, "Men build things, and then we die." I was just googly eyed about that when I was, 19, 20, 21, 22. But I just sort of got that from it, and I don't know. It didn't do it for me. It seemed onanistic. It seemed redundant. Although I liked parts of it. I liked the wet spit. But some of it seemed redundant, like to say man was born for greatness. It seemed understood what the dichotomy they were laying out here was, man should be doing this, he's not doing this. And then you have several instances of that. It didn't seem to really drive the thesis forward anymore. It sort of seemed like you could have just made it a sentence statement, and then you had the whole idea. Now again, I still think.
No, what I was saying was the sense of repetition. If you notice each of the first stanzas, the man, the capital, it's all capital M, man. The only time there's a lowercase man really is to either in a description of a negative, although man was born to comprehend. That's the only was to its basic bitch comprehension. Man was born to see the light and hang his mouth agape and be amazed. A lowercase man, the Untermensch, the basic man, was born to comprehend. Capital case man, the upper man, the superman, was born to actually be inspired, to be amazed. And then the second time a lowercase man is used, he's on the ground. He looks to the ground. He does not look up. So I thought the idea of a rhythm, to establish that rhythm of repetition, was the sense of a kind of a, I guess you could say a prayer. I guess you could say it is didactic. But when you fuse it with the previous poem of the boar, I thought it was basically just setting up a sort of hymn to the overall spirit of the book itself.
I saw a bit of a biblical vibe to it also, with the high amount of repetition. Like, that's a very common thing in Old Testament and a lot of old, really like truly ancient writings like Babylonian and all those kinds of dudes.
I didn't go back quite that far, but I would say that the American current paradigm of that would be Walt Whitman's Song of Myself, which was more or less taken from a psalmic preaching sort of vernacular. And I think that's, I wrote Walt Whitman, I wrote WW in big letters on this, definitely this has a debt, a homage to that style, which I'm not against. I won't say I'm against that style by itself. And I agree with the things you said. I think that, those were intentional intentions.
Yeah. But it's not as accessible.
Those are intentional intentions, but I don't think that saves it. And the last thing I'll say is, the one that I paired this with was, James Dickey, the great Southern poet, from his collection Falling May Day Sermon and Other Poems. He has a fantastic poem in here called Deer Among Cattle. And it's about him, stealing upon deer in a fenced-in enclosure with his cattle. And it's a fantastic dichotomy. You can probably, guess what's happening. The deer can leave. They can jump over the fence. They can eat grass as they please. They have the benefits of freedom and of eating grass, right? And the cows are just kind of sitting there not caring.
There are a couple, compositional themes in this one that I do enjoy. And I agree. I don't find this one as enjoyable, as the first, especially, right next to it. But when it says, the first line is, man was born out of clay, out of wet spit, out of will, out of light. And then the penultimate line it inverts that, and it says, once the man is no longer directed upward, because there's sort of a directional, there's two divides in this, and that divide there is a concrete, like an E.E. Cummings concrete element, I think. And the page or the paragraph break there is where man is no longer directed upward, he's directed downward. And it says, there goes man, his feet on the ground, his eyes on the ground, agape, alone. And then it repeats the out litany, and it repeats them in reverse. So it says, out of light, out of will, out of wonder, rather than born out of clay, out of wet spit, out of will, out of light. So,
right.
So it's
the
out
what's
of
the term for that?
Yeah. So
I think that's chiasmus. Is that the term when you have A, B, C, C, D, A? You have the reverse order.
And it's not, and it's the double meaning of out, right? So it's not an not an emergence from. It is being bereft of, right? It's
another pun.
Yep,
another
exactly.
Pun. A pun I'm not against either. The last thing I'll say here is, again, I would, and again, this comes back to my philosophy for publishing poetry with Apocalypse Confidential. I think with singular poems, you should just, if you see it, I see them as acorns. You should just kind of toss them out there and see what grows, right?
Yeah.
I had to create this distinction because we started taking manuscripts this year in 2023, and I had this very oh fuck it, let's give it a shot thing with singular poems in the mag, and then we had these manuscripts, and all of a sudden I had to reevaluate that, and I sort of have come to the distinction that the manuscripts are sort of like full-grown trees, and singular poems are kind of acorns. So all that being said, this I would run with one edit. My one edit, I pity him, because all of you, show of hands, whatever in the chat, that last line could be removed. that is peak that is the redundancy goes from venial to mortal with I pity him, because we all have read the poem and we've got to the end of it and we know what the tone is, and I think within 3 or 4 lines you could tell me, is this author pitying the person he's talking about? And we'd all say yeah. So I think, so again, not to, this is, but I don't know, not to be, negging everything, but hell, that's why I'm here, and
no, that's
what happens.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's a, I think that it does over-explain it, and it doesn't seem, and maybe I'm the Philistine here, but it doesn't seem to have a compositional thematic element.
I'll have to defend it here. I will have to defend it here because I think it's not supposed to be expositional. I think it's supposed to be like a statement of a personality. It's a swagger statement. I pity him. It's Nietzsche. It's Zarathustra. It's one of his sayings or his quotes.
It's Mr. T.
It's like it is Mr. T basically. It's like I pity the fool. You know what I mean? It's a statement. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It is that Mr. T, that sense of barbaric swagger. I pity him. It's whoever's speaking of this, who says man is, whoever he is preaching, and he says, go look down, like Zarathustra coming down the mountain. He sees the last man. He sees the Untermensch. He sees him, and he sees what he is not and what a man could be. And when he says, I pity him, there's a certain sense of a statement. He is talking from on high. He is speaking from on high. It's not expositional. He's not trying to explain to you, who is the POV. It's not a POV thing. It's a statement. It's a personality statement, I think.
Well, it's almost like the tone is from a pulpit, and so it's like there's that delivering like the final nail in the coffin of the message of like where you should stand relative to this. I would agree. It's not quite as strong as the last one, but
there's nothing wrong with competent. If a poem can create some friction, there's nothing against that. Half of the stuff that I like or don't like are the opposite half of things that people like or don't like, and that's kind of the beauty of poetry. You have these things that are a page or two, and they just being a page or two, they become like Dostoevsky and monoliths. They're these things that are fighting each other and fucking or fighting.
That's the idea.
That's kind of the.
And we should also say, because we didn't say this, the second poem is "Man Was Born" by Ariel Gantz. And
more importantly, is Ariel a woman? Did the Passage Prize get a woman this time?
This is actually one of the couple of women inside here. Actually,
we're gonna make it, guys. Yeah,
I'm just
like
shitposting. I think
that's this collection is not true so approved. I'm sorry, boys.
It's good to see him represented, though.
We love our female followers. Yeah. Hey, this is a good time to plug the latest book out on Apocalypse Confidential Press, which I work for, Incurable Graphomania by Anna Krivolapova. She's been on several podcasts and only can get the name right. That's it, Krivolapova. It is a beautiful collection of short stories, and I couldn't recommend it more. And it's hot as hell right now. It's going gangbusters. So get yourself a copy.
She also has a vagina.
I own that book, and I have only gotten so far as reading the first short story, but I liked that. So, and I will be finishing it at some point. But anyway, all right.
Okay. So coming up next, we have some art, "The Wild Hunt" by Helvetian Alpinist.
Yes, Helvetian Alpinist.
I believe that's how it's said.
Alpinist. The first place,
and rightfully so,
piece for visual art. Yes.
Yeah, and this is like a really strong return to Monkey. I don't know if we can talk for too long about a visual medium, so I don't want to belabor it too much. But yeah, it's just sort of a cave art inspired. It even says as much in the description.
I'm glad you picked it. I'm glad you picked it up too, actually, because when I first bought this book, I looked through all the art. But I didn't go in chronological order. I went backwards towards. I didn't read anything. I just looked at the pictures. And you see this art, and my first thought was actually, oh man, this is like the caveman. in all the Pixar films and all the digital films, you always see the iconic fist, the hand print on the wall, and the deer and stuff like this. And it's a 3-act structure. It's a 3-act story told through this cave arc. You see the first story, or the first of the images is called Audibus Tyrannus Tarantula. And it's basically just a silhouette of a woman, right? And it's very much like a dusty wall. And then the second piece is called Suna and Singust, which is basically almost a archaic version of a boat, of a sea, of like I forgot what's the Nordic boat called, a long hauler. It's not a long hauler, a hull, or wherever the fuck. It's a old Viking-looking boat, basically. And so you're slowly building up from the maternal female, the eternal mother, the chthonic mother of the earth, to the sea. And from the sea, you finally get the gangbanger piece, the absolute wild hunt. Yeah, the wild hunt. This piece is actually probably the best piece. Because if you notice, it goes from the sense of the chthonic to the sea, to exploration away from the oil, away from the soil, away from the earth. And finally all the way up to the sky. And the images get bigger and bigger, and the canvas gets filled out more and more, to the point you see this giant just explosion orgy of energy. Which is, of course, of sky horses. And it's silhouettes of horses. It's like horses made out of clouds.
Yeah. I'd love to see them in person. Like, there's a 3D effect, particularly in the second one.
And it is they do note the size of these things. So this is the Wild Hunt is 300 centimeters by 430 centimeters.
Can you say that in English?
Yeah.
Well, how many dicks?
Yeah.
How many dicks is that?
Americans will use anything but the metric system. Yeah, it is. Quick maths. It's about 10 feet. It's about 10 feet.
Yeah, it looks massive. It looks massive, and it feels massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beastly.
Yeah, it's 10 feet tall and 14 feet wide. It's an enormous piece, and the artist statement in here is quite detailed. Like, this is a very professional artist statement. For Suna and Synthgund is the second piece. It is a Makoro longboat, and there's actually a boat that is attached to this canvas here. So this piece, or not canvas, I don't believe. On canvas. Yeah, on canvas.
I have
it is.
No idea what that one's made out of.
Yes, it is,
like
and it is on
it
canvas.
is stitched together in the middle.
And this longboat is a real boat is in fact attached to this thing. So similarly a massive piece of art, and I can only imagine that seeing these in person is an intimidating experience.
Yeah, if you notice the archaeofuturism element as well, if you notice the first painting it's a silhouette of a dress, of a modern dress, but on a very much a cave painting-esque foreground or background. And as it progresses, it goes more backward in time. There's something more primitive. You see an ocean, you see the water, you see the boat. And, of course, it has the aid of a visual boat, right? Kind of a cheat sheet, but it gets you primitively there. Like, okay, we're away from the modern. It's a modern-looking boat, or more modern than what's actually depicted in the painting, because you can clearly see the classic Nordic arch of the boats on the actual painting. And finally, it goes all the way... And the actual animals, what's being depicted, is actually less detailed. It's one of the least amount of detailed. The horses are just outlines, but you fill it out yourself, right? Your instincts carry you forward.
Well, and it is a reconstituting of Peter Nikolai Arbo's The Wild Hunt of Odin. So it is a direct reference to an older piece of art to reflect the
but it's
modern
appealing
time,
away from your forward
basically.
Brain and going to your backward brain. You have to fill it out. It's not actually using the famous painting of the Odin's Ride. It actually, you have to fill it out yourself in an instinctual sense. You fill it out before your brain does, if that makes any sense.
All right. We're going to dive into the chewy, crunchy fiction nougats at this point. Really diving into the short stories. Up next, The Kindness by Walter Askey.
All right, so the first story actually is a story called The Kindness by Walter Askey. And one of the things that shoots you out beforehand is I really want to talk about the editing here. Is that everything kind of flows together very perfectly. It's not one section's dedicated to poetry, and then page 144 is dedicated to fiction, so forth. It's a mix. Everything is interwoven throughout like a Celtic knot. Like the first thing you see here is not actually the words or even the title. It is literally the rune for nature, if I recall correctly. The text is actually superimposed on an image of a pagan rune. I think it means nature, if I recall correctly, and of a forest. So the visual comes out to you first, and then you actually kind of have to pseudo struggle. It's not annoying. He managed to somehow make the text actually still pop out relatively easily. And so the kindness is basically, it's bread. You know, it's bread and butter for the scene, kind of. It's a Christian post-apocalyptic story, right? Dave has a very good story like that. We all have that pitch, right? It's ever since E.B. White. It's pure Americana, right? The Christian apocalypse story. And so it takes place on a compound called the Ark. And it's a bunch of post-apocalyptic survivors. And they create like a theocratic state. It's not trad Cath, it's trad Protestant, right? So the owner of the Ark, or the owner of this compound named the Ark, he literally names his son Noah. And throughout the piece, the cities are gone, and the only thing that's left is bandits, but they're called wolves. They're symbolized or personified as wolves. And throughout the story, they get closer and closer to the Ark. And the main hook of the story is that in this compound, there's a child known as the Devil Child. And basically, literally killed his mother in birth, and will not receive the word of Christ. Can't even speak, is living in a shed covered in his shit, constantly actually treated relatively nicely for all things considered, constantly trying to be spoken the word of God, taken to celebrations or holidays, and this kid will not budge, still cannot speak, is just living as an animal, until one day, once the wolves get a little closer, they actually feed the boy to the wolves, literally. And they go out, the boy goes out, is terrified, is lost, is deeply confused. And one of the bandits, who himself is revealed to have lived in the Ark, actually 15 years prior, actually opens up a little blanket and some food with cheese on it. And it's a dog's blanket. He specifically says it used to belong to his old dog. And the kid wraps himself up, and the pack, quote-unquote, literally absorbs him in. And it's hinted, I don't know if it's straight out said, that they actually destroy the Ark. But they apparently leave no survivors on a raid, and they head on down south. And that's the end of the story.
Gabe, your reading comprehension, I don't know, man. So a few things on this one. So, you know, it's not clear if these are real wolves or if these are people.
No, they're clearly people because they talk about guns.
They do not have guns.
I read there was some purposeful ambiguity, but I didn't think it was 100%.
Yeah, the people on the Ark run out of bullets.
But it's not clear.
Or the people in the Ark run out of bullets. There is definitely some purposeful ambiguity in there because
I thought it was a metaphor.
They say no. I mean, I think that's what makes this thematic for rewilding, actually. So it says that the people on the Ark had little ammunition left when the wolves finally came. So it's definitely them who did not have ammunition. Although the Ark was far into the quiet country, the righteous were at last discovered by the heathens, the sodomites, whoremongers, dissolute, and bestial, those whom the Lord had said, "Begone, accursed, I know ye not." They were starving, desperate, and savage, and for this ignored the warning shots, the signs posted at the perimeter, and so they were destroyed. So it is possible that those are people, right? But at the end, they are wolves. They are described as wolves. That they, let's see. They had hunted men before and were cautious. They watched with their great patience. As midnight came, they circled around and came close to the boy in strength. He stared at these solid pink-tongued ghosts with his big dark eyes, and they came close to this imp, this questionable man-boy smelling rankly of wildness and unknowing anguish, this unworded creature wrapped in a thick and momently startling weave of puppies and man lullabies and biscuits, and a spot by the fireplace for an old and large dog that had been of some goodness. And incidentally, one of the raiders did not come to give him a blanket and food. It was a person from the Ark.
I think it was an exile, right? It was a former Ark person.
Yeah. The man had lived in the Ark for 15 years since it was settled by the Reverend. He had once had a dog, but the dog had died recently, and now he was alone. The man approached the child very slowly, put the blanket on the ground by the dog, and some bread and cheese tied in a bundle with string. The blanket was his dog's blanket. The child hesitated, then took it and wrapped it around himself eagerly, as if the warmth inbred in the weave and smell of the wool. It was a big blanket, and the child was small. The man said, "You won't hear me." He pointed insistently to the south, and then went back into the woods, and the boy was alone. So he was an exile, but he did not seem he didn't come from the same direction as the as the wolves.
So he's not a raider. You're saying that's enough to sense that he himself is not a raider, and he's described as a man.
Yes, and at the end, another reason they say they sniffed the boy with their inquisitive snouts, and then the impatience to which wolves are also subject seized them. As one, they ran onto the Ark under the fierce compulsion, innocent of hatred or belief. So they're completely wild, and they are described as animals, not men. They returned sometime later, sated, heavy with gladness at the blood they had taken, and they left no remnant. So the Ark was destroyed. When they came to the boy, they nuzzled him lazily, and he went with them, and they went south together gracefully. It sounds like at that point they are truly wolves, whether or not, and it is true that the sodomites and whoremongers, which I presume actual wolves are not.
You don't know they
do. Well, wolves do not respect monogamy, my friend. They do not respect the sanctity of marriage.
Yeah, but do they pay for sex? Yeah. You don't pegging. Know they don't. That's a different part of Twitter where you can learn about that.
Oh, they're furries. That's that. Yes, they're furry bandits.
That's what it was. So, the things that are interesting here. There is a transition. I think that there is a transition here, when all the evils of the world are described as wolves, kind of, and this boy, out of this the compulsion of this community,
he becomes a literal scapegoat.
This sick community, basically locked this boy in a cage, and made him live like an animal, and so he was feral. Yeah, he was feral, right? So he's a feral child who never learned to speak, was ignored by everyone and raised in filth, and eventually thrown to the wolves. But that was his deliverance. So the overall theme here is the escape from this stultifying society and an embrace of a less refined, wilder, and more dangerous state of being.
Yeah, the vialistic pagan, and that's the thing, is that's a tension throughout this entire book, and I guess you can say throughout is that
very thematically coherent.
Yeah, literally nature and religion, Christ and the pagan, right? Because the first two poems, the art, the painting, everything, it is overwhelmingly vitalistic, pagan inspired. It's very classical heroism. It's Hellenic,
right?
It's Germanic. Yeah. This is the first time. This first story sets up the dichotomy and the tension, and the molding together and breaking away of the religious, of the Christian worldview, of the Abrahamic view, and the pagan view. Because he even says, "Let God decide." I think they want to kill him as a scapegoat, like Dave said. But the head religious figure says, send him out there and let God decide. Literally send him to the wolves. And he is spared. He is
There's
Ishmael,
also
basically.
I should say the rune here that is superimposed is Othala. Othala is the.
We got a real esotericist
Yep.
on our hands.
It means nature, right, or no?
Homeland.
Okay.
Homeland.
Home. Yeah.
Well, he is at home
So-
in nature. Yet again, I thought he
Right.
was actually born that way. I didn't. You took the socialist route or the sociology route of like him. He's treated made him this way. I thought based on the rune and based overall on the theme. And
I mean,
story,
I think it works on. I mean, it's working. It's doing work on multiple levels here.
yeah,
but-
it's literally ambiguous as hell, but in a good
Oh,
way.
and
it doesn't go
and
deeper.
and also on the topic of the wolves, about halfway through the story, they do refer to them as werewolves. So
yeah.
there is a point. The stories they are men, they are werewolves, they are wolves, right? So there's this transformation
They're one and the same.
of the wild people, of the people outside of the ark. So
Yeah, and if you notice, when they make the moralistic statements about the whoremongers and so forth, that comes from modernity. That comes from urbanness, from the cities. If you notice, the cities no longer exist by the time. It's been at least, a couple generations, or at least a decade or so.
No.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be basically as it's collapsing and they're living through the collapse. Because then civilization's breaking down, people turn to raiding and all that.
Well, there is a passage of time. It basically...
Yeah, there's a passage of time. Yeah,
And
the
now
cities have completely gone to shit. No one is even hanging on. All the canned goods are gone.
No more Mars bars, as one
But
one
but
person
basically
Exactly.
the toxic, at least for me, because you start out the story, at least for me as an edgelord, you're sympathetic towards this Christian art community, and over the course of it sort of, at least it twists your expectations, maybe from in this scene at least, rather than them being the heroes, it's the people who basically survive the collapse and go through this sort of purifying fire by wilderness, this rewilding. They end up being the chosen ones in the end, the ones that are the more respectable, and inheritors of the future, rather than this Christian sect, which, while they rejected some aspects of modernity, they obviously carried on these, I don't know what you would call it, these non-pastoralist cuck, whatever it is, belief systems, and they fall into the same spirals and dynamics of the past. So it subverted my expectations with that view of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's also it's an inversion. It's a pagan version of, I guess you could say from a Christian point of view, the original story is pagan, is the Ishmael story from the Old Testament. Or if I remember my Old Testament correctly, Ishmael is a son of a side hoe of Abraham, and I believe God tells his whole mother to kill him, or the mother to kill him. But so Ishmael goes on his own, and he eventually founds Islam, or Muhammad claims descent from Ishmael, if I recall correctly. But so it's a spoof of that. God will sort him out. Then he kind of goes and finds his natural religion, which is the religion of the woods. You have the Ark, right? You have the Ark, the religion of the old, trying to live through the apocalypse, right? The classic Ark thing. Resident Evil 6, the film, did that, right? But the Ark is destroyed. But ironically enough, this version of Noah, he ends up becoming, his religious deal is not a covenant with the god, it's covenant with the spirit of the woods, literally the wolfmen. And so it's odd. It's almost like a
fallen
synthesis
Noah,
of the
because
two
he
religions.
doesn't synthesize with the wild men. He doesn't synthesize with the woods. Like he turns the child that's like the spirit of that into his scapegoat, and then casts him out.
No, I was talking about the kid himself.
I don't know if I totally follow, but
No, I meant like Noah. He survives the flood. He has his daughters. He fucks his daughters. I think at one point. But basically, he survives the apocalypse, and the same thing goes.
Lot.
Oh yeah, no.
You're
Oh
thinking
no,
of
one of his sons sees him naked. That's right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But the point being is that, and again, also a reversion of that. Noah is sanctimonious. You're not supposed to see your father naked, against primitive nature, against it. Well, this boy, he found salvation after destruction of the safe place, of the ark. He finds salvation through the deeply, so primal, they're literally described as beasts of animals, wolf men. They're constantly interchangeable. We don't even agree whether or not they're men or wolves or werewolves or wherever the hell, right? He is subliminally salvaged through the primitive and through the instinctual.
Yeah, it was a good one. I really enjoyed it.
It was solid. The style wasn't like wow, but it was a solid opener.
Yeah,
it fits the
in
theme
a tight,
well.
very tight amount of words. This is 4 pages. So, all right, capstone on that. Let me get the buzzer out again. The next one, page 17, The Orient, When the Gracious Light by W.R. Westaway.
And this is the first place poem.
Yeah, an interesting piece of work. Absolutely. I enjoyed it. I think you can obviously, put it in you could bring it up with various, war poems, Tennyson's Charge of the Light Brigade for sure, in that it's about, heavy, cavalry charges. Cataphractos is a war horse, Destriers or armored horsemen. I think Bucephalus was Alexander the Great's horse, one of his horses.
Right.
Yeah, and something nice about war poetry, this, and, Tennyson, or, the one I placed this next to was, Alta Forte by Ezra Pound. Well, I've brought up maybe too much. I can't bring up Ezra Pound anymore. I'm timed out. He has a fantastic war.
You have as many Ezra Pound references as Gabe gets Strauss references and Spengler references.
I'm good.
So
I'm good.
It's an infinite, boundless well.
It's a
Faustian well. It's beyond limits.
Fantastic. So in this case, it reminded the one I put it next to was Ezra Pound's Sestina Alta Forte. The Sestina being an extremely finicky, hard to pull off French poetic form, and this is not that. It doesn't matter, but it's just a beautiful martial, sort of a timelessly martial poem. And I enjoyed this one quite a bit. It has really large, long, challenging, demanding, maybe you should say, lines, which I enjoy a lot. I like when people have really these lines that sort of, verge, that sort of, verge into the, danger zone of just, how do you scan it? How do you read it? How do you weigh it? These big lines like that. But then he has these extremely short lines, heavy with the emphasis cavalry. And I think he stays on the tightrope, I'll give him that. That's the challenge. I think he pulls it off. I had a couple, and this might be my, poetry editor thing where, it's like the Italian mother where you try and find something wrong or try and find something to improve. The paragraph that begins, for all things fire and fire for all things, which is a very, Poundian, Alta Forte sentiment, extremely, and you could also sort of compare it to Keats, the romantic poet Keats, truth is beauty and beauty truth, right? It's sort of a martial treatment of Keats's truth is beauty and beauty truth. But the next two lines of those I think are the most, laden. 1 million nameless may fall before we reach beyond the last horizon. And even that would not satiate the flame of the new sun. And this is more of a thought than anything, but, and I sort of enjoyed this thought because it's about a heavy cavalry charge, which is essentially these big heavy things charging across an empty plain into something else. I think you could do something interesting with sentence structure here, where you could put fall in the second line at the end of the line, and you could do the same thing with even in the third line. So you could, and again, and I think not only does that fit the idea of the cavalry charge, but I think it also is pertinent to reading the line out loud. I think it might be easier on the tongue. So, for instance, for all things fire and fire for all things, 1 million nameless may before we reach beyond the last horizon fall. And that would not satiate the flame of the new sun even. So that was my only little speak.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
I think that maybe displacing normal sentence structure is don't do it unless you have a good reason. But I thought it might be an interesting pass at it. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Well, the theme overall is rejuvenation, right? Like heavy cavalry is literally a line by itself. And literally the line after heavy cavalry is life cannot exist outside of these spangled saddles or silvered reins. Right? So it's the idea of rejuvenation, like the sun, the new sun, carrying the new morning, right? We come to lay rest your dying world. It's triumphant. It's it's the idea of rewilding, sure. Right? But it's a different thing. It's martial. Right, the fire is new. It's a new sun, right? Flame horizon. It is something a Heraclitus fanboy to go back a little bit beyond the American canon of poetry. This is a poem that I think Heraclitus would, fire and warfare are the father of all things. Certainly. So, yeah, I think the message is on point, but it just did not speak to me. I cannot. Again, I'm not a poetry guy. I don't know the structures of poems. Overall, I did not. Out of all the poems, this would not have been my first pick. I just think like, oh, cool, it's a battle scene, and it fits very well. But it did not. It was not a cheeky.
Yeah, it's funny. Title Bore connected with me more, and one of the later ones about death than this one did, but still good. And my as a poetry lit, my only thought was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like Charge of the Light Brigade. That's really all I had.
Sounds like you guys need to accept your birthright of unmarked graves and unsung songs. And bear your Wicker shields before the glory of Alexander.
It's over, Wicker shield bros.
I agree. It wouldn't have been my grandpa my palme d'or or whatever, but I did enjoy it. And and also he's using a lot of diction and language and sentence structure that would be very easy again to fall off of the tightrope and just sound hackneyed or sound like mothballs or something like that. And I think he's able to address those themes and use that diction without quite falling off or coming off too hell larby, for lack of a more literate term. So again, yeah, I enjoy it. If this was sent to me, I would give it a shot. I enjoyed quite a bit of it. The Dreamer's fallow field rasps. I thought there was a, he has an ear. So much stuff nowadays is just, low gear Bukowski or low gear, Richard Brautigan, and it can't escape influence and have its own voice. And I think this doesn't quite fail that way. So I think there's much to like about it. And this is a general zoom out kind of thing. I don't think you can really love a poet until you've read, like, it's like the anime rule, where, watch 5 episodes of it and see if you hate it or not. I want to see more of it. I want to see if there's a voice and a point of view and a vision. Which is good. If you want to read more, that's certainly a virtue.
There is also this theme of here that I feel, I don't know. So there's this theme of where they are, the theme is that they're on the eastern rise, so they're on a hilltop to the east of these hapless valley men, and they are the sun. Bucephalus emerges ahead carrying the spear of vainglorious morning. It is like they are shining and silvered, and they are like light crashing.
No, for sure. So that's and again, not to keep saying pun, but yeah, that's another fantastic play on words there with vainglorious morning, and it's a beautiful drop in formation. We are the evening of Earth, so it's this fantastic sort of pre-rush dread, and then you have this morning, this birth, this birth out of this. No, I think there's a lot of grace to it. Absolutely.
So moving on, Paper Bowls by A.H. Mills. So this is it has a Kaczynski, Uncle Ted with his arms crossed, portrait next to it. It's his young him. I actually thought this was nonfiction at first because it starts with a discussion of this military operation of like psychological warfare, and it's interspersed with these like lines about like torture methods of breaking down identity. And over the course between these like little segments, there's a story of a guy. Essentially, I guess he's just struggling to have a relationship with a woman over time, and them drifting apart, and then finally they just end up not being together because of, I guess, political differences, partly. If I'm right, there's some reference to Occupy Wall Street. I'm thinking of the right story.
There was basically he was a based boy, and she was a lefty girl.
Couldn't make it any more obvious.
Stole my line, dude.
And they got the argument is that the political divisions caused her to become more cowed and him to become more
and there's a reference to a lion in the zoo that roars, and it ends with a line, somewhere a lion awakens. This one for me was probably my first one that fell pretty flat. I just did not I don't know. It was just a little all over the place with the jumps between. I understand the idea with the military operation reference and the torture mind control references, but to me it just broke it. And then I don't know. I didn't have a sense for either of these characters. I didn't have a sense for. It was a little all over the place. And yeah, to me it just kind of fell flat. Gabe, I know you're a champion. Go ahead, lift your shield up.
This is our biggest... this is our big... Yes, my Wicker shield, absolutely. This is our biggest difference in opinion, probably in the entirety of the history of our careers together. Like, Paper Wolves, like, for me, the kindness...
Such as they are.
Yes.
I'm taking my 50 subs and going home.
The kindness was... our illustrious 12... Actually, we haven't hit 12 episodes. This is probably episode 9 or whatever. Right? But anyway... The kindness was like an appetizer. It's bread without olive oil, without seasoning.
Food metaphor,
it's Wonder Bread, right? Not Wonder Bread. It's quality bread. It's bestial. You eat the food. Eating is primal, right? It's wild, right? It's a Christian post-apocalyptic story. We all have them, when you walked out, I made a reference to your excellent style version of this.
Nice shilling.
Coming out
Always
soon.
Be shilling.
Always be shilling, right? But with Paper Wolves, it actually comes to where the themes and style and of the spirit of our scene, right? If the first thing you see is Teddy K, which made me very much smile, but it's not meme Teddy K. It's not. He is not in his Unabomber arc. This is old age. This is young Teddy K. Yes, yep. I think this actually might be even a high school picture, if I recall. Well, he was already but the point of Paper Wolves, the first thing you see is from a manual of the CIA from counterintelligence, using the Alice in Wonderland way of confusion techniques. Basically, completely shatter the subject's idea of reality. And the first excerpt of the story, it takes place in Nova Scotia, where the government, just for shits and giggles, really, starts saying that there's wolves out there. It's a training exercise. There's wolves. The wolves are loose. Hide your kids, hide your girls. And they start playing wolf noises. And it comes to such lunacy. I believe they actually do genuinely use like cardboard cutouts of wolves at one point, just to torture this poor society in Nova Scotia, this small society of semi-illiterate people. And these excerpts of both the manual, I thought it was done pretty well, of the manual explaining the Alice in Wonderland reference about slowly getting the subject to completely submit through confusion, through complete shattering. They're the demiurge, right? They control reality. They control what's true. So you get interspersed with, I assume, are real stories or partly real or semi-believable. I didn't want to look them up because I thought it would kind of ruin the joke. It's like, reading about the punchline, right? So the first line, you sound retarded when you say psyops. Psyops, she mimicked. Droplets sprayed into a beam of sun in front of her face, like a wet punctuation. The contempt in her voice said everything. It was over between us. We'd met outside the Trump Hotel during a protest on the eve of his election. She approached me and asked, "What side are you on?" "The good side," I said. And so like I said, it's classic skater boy dynamic. She's an art hoe. He's a magapede. We all remember those glory days, right? But you could see he even says, often she didn't even look up from her phone. We fought over the stupidest shit, and by the time she got the shot, we weren't even fucking. She didn't get her period for 6 months. We broke up in slow motion, right? And then it continues on, and then you get intersperse of commentary of society, both from the actual text of the CIA novel, the CIA manual, talk about the process of completely dissociating the person, the target, from reality. You hear about attacks of coyotes killing women, and you hear about the Canadians using this basically a false flag operation, which I think is a true story. I think I remember this story because Trudeau banned handguns.
That one was true. I googled it.
Basically, so again, mixing of reality and fiction, just like the CIA novel or CIA manuscript. And then you have The Lion, which you talked about, which was very fitting. It's a short excerpt. That really, they say he suffered depression when the zoo was closed during the pandemic, deprived suddenly of his audience, like an Instagram model forced to quarantine in a hotel without Wi-Fi. If we can't have red meat and open plains, at least give us the approval of onlookers. Something in that throaty roar, the sound reveling in interior vastness, skin stretched over ribs like a bass timpani. So they're even psyopic.
Timpani. Bass timpani. Bass as in the sound register, timpani as in a drum.
Well, listen, we got the music.
Not a kind of fish.
when we start reviewing music albums, Cap is our instrument guy. All right. But the point being is that they're psyopic even, if you notice, he associates with the animal. We, at least let us be seen. The thing about the Wonderland method is that they're isolated from even people, from being recognized. At this point, they're fine with being spied at. Just look at me, acknowledge me. I need to be witnessed. I need to be seen. Right? But the reality of him and his girl is that they're completely witnessing two different realities. The chasm between the real and the unreal is so vast, they can't even see each other. They don't even see each other as people anymore, as entities. She is a cliche of a woke hipster marijuana smoker who has shots. He is the PSYOP InfoWars watcher, right? So if they've PSYOP their own selves, they've given in to the very game of the CIA manual. Why deal with the method if you can get the subject to PSYOP themselves? And one of the best quotes, one of the good lines, the style lines, was actually this line right here, because the lion, a lot of the excerpts of like random stories seem pointless, and I understand it with Dave, but it fits in. I think he ties into the lion thing here. Nature,
it's the storytelling is oblique. Yeah, the last two sections wrap it up, and she is a dog who has assimilated into the coyote pack temporarily and is going to return to the security of the household.
Yeah, he is a lion.
Yeah, they call her a coy wolf.
And that's actually one of my issues with it. Is that to me, I actually think it does frame him clearly as the correct one, which is he's the bold lion freeing himself from the cage. She's the dumb coyote. Which again, I don't know. That's a little bit on the simple. It's too simple. The character's too simple. There's just too much stuff crowded in. There's only 3 pages, so this is a short little thing. I don't know. To me, it was just all over the place. I understand the meaning of all the quotations and what the storytelling plan is with it. It just didn't strike me. It didn't strike a chord with me, I guess, because it was so hit here, hit there.
I think it would have been. I think it would have been stronger without the lion section, because the section of the lion would have being removed would have kept the story of, you would have the story of the people and the psyops and the social confusion and the coyote dog narrative parallel to draw. But I would say, but I do think that maybe you're overstating it a little bit, David. And that the good thing here, the one thing that is it says, I lost her in the gap in the polarity of our separating ideologies.
Yeah, that's the line. I love that line.
Hold on. Our love was swallowed in opposing confirmation biases. So there is some degree to which the guy is admitting that he is not immune to propaganda. And but the good thing in this story is the next line. I remember the next break. I remember her happy when we woke up in a tent. I remember the sight of the dimples on her back, slipping naked in the blue of an alpine lake. These were the things we never fought about, the mountains and the rain. That's like the one who's right here is being outside of society. Like they're both interacting with things in a way that is not ideal, and the ideal situation is the mountains and the streams, and
touching grass.
And touch grass, touch alpine lake
with your butt dimples.
Yeah, man, butt dimples.
And if you notice, the lion is is impotent. The lion is not a base trad thing. The lion is, well, he's aware of his cage, but he's no anywhere best result than the coy wolf that goes into society willingly. He's castrated, and so when he compares himself to a lion, he's screaming into the void. The line I was talking about when he talks about nature, in nature there are primal threats. But when you're because he even makes a double pun. He makes a double pun with a chasm, because you notice he says, behavioral science finds new methods of exploiting the chasm, of turning our roars into digital static, of digital static. And the next line is literally, I lost her in the gap, right after the mention of a chasm, right? So it's a double layered pun. Not only the chasm between ideologies, which is ideologies are thin air, right? As the lake and the mountains, even between behavioral nature, the chasm between what we are programmed to do, what we're naturally able to do, and the reality around us. So it's a double layered pun of being lost in between two separate points. In reality, is just to be in a natural state, to be away from it all. That's why they put the Teddy K picture, which I had to give a side note, by the way, a sidebar, is that the images, the editing in this is flawless. Whoever was the editor of this, I think Wolin, it's something for W, you did a phenomenal job, because the images, the poetry, everything, it's basically one big story. It's a chronicle. It's like Canterbury Tales. Everything ties in just beautifully together. The imagery, everything.
I think you're a little confused. Woland is the guy who did After the War, which is an upcoming thing from Passage Prize. The layout and design here was by Malice Fabres. Art and illustrations, the internal ones not otherwise contributed, was Nick Rivers, and of course Lomez is the head editor.
Lomez and Malice do fantastic.
Yeah, the layouts in here are pretty much immaculate. You can't really knock the project. And in fact, this is so well done. I hope that Passage is also doing the the physical printings for Raw Egg Nationalists, Man's World magazine in 2024, and hopefully in relative perpetuity. This production has made me like really believe in the product. So I'm very optimistic about the quality that they're going to turn out for that project too. Man's World Online being a very basically the only thing I'll read online, frankly, because their website is very
really
very
well made.
So
yeah, the UI, the design on the website's fantastic. The mouse, the little thing is very cute too.
Right.
Very cheeky.
Yeah.
All right. I hope I didn't cross overly negative. I do think it was well written overall. Nothing I'd say in this book overall is total shit. But this one was just not my favorite. And I totally hear the Sweetie Squad defense.
They can put that in for the they can put that in on the blurb for Passage Prize 3. David Harrod says
none of it was total shit. So yeah, like I said, just a little too crowded for me. I totally hear you guys. Your what is it? Wicker shield defense. All right, stop Wicker shielding it, bros. Moving on to The Ungar and Sternberg of Notting Hill by Gaston Nerval. Did a little Gabe pronunciation there.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's really? Nerval.
God damn it.
Actually,
I think it is Nerval.
That wasn't even on purpose. my tight 5 on it. So it starts basically, this one is sort of a textbook retrospective description of the nuclear holocaust of New York City that we all fantasize about occasionally. It's written in the future where this is history. Is focusing on our main character, Darcet. What was his full name? Roman Darcet.
Roman Darcet.
Who and just goes in detail about just how little is known about this guy who changed the shape of the world, the tides of history by making a nuclear bomb in his little apartment in Queens. All we know is he wrote some shitty essay on To Kill a Mockingbird in high school, and he attended some college, got some kind of degree, worked a professional-ish job, and then the nuke went off, and that's it. And so this one, this one, the last one, probably the ones that weren't quite my favorite of this collection. So this one, I found it recycling a little bit the same idea of we don't know much about this guy who changed the world, and by its nature, that kind of description can't inform you of a lot or explore the ideas of the person. So I don't know. It again, very competently written, but I just found it a little dry and just sort of theorizing about this hypothetical thing that happened, but not providing a lot of clarity on, I guess, the character of him. Because we don't know why he built the nuke. We don't know how he built the nuke, and so it was just sort of this kind of a circular discussion on this hypothetical, or not hypothetical, this fictional event by a fictional character. But go ahead, get your Wicker shields out, boys, if you'd like.
Well, this actually was not as strong for me as Paper Wolves, but this is a concept piece. This is sci-fi, basically. For me, the actual meat of this, because the whole point is, okay, it's a false flag. Well, basically, I read okay, you're not supposed to look into Darcet. Literally, the whole message, how it works, is that he is an instrument. He is an instrument of history. Right, the idea of time going backward, curling back, of retrochronic action. It's a theory cell piece, basically. The piece really starts with the magic line. Magic is the union of intent and sacrifice, and the act was the most potent of its species since the crucifixion of Christ. So the final paragraph is really where you have to. Basically, it's the entire heart piece of the soul. Basically, he quotes Tolstoy about, the individual is the differential of history, which I believe Tolstoy was the one who said that. And basically, this moment, retrochronically, he even calls him an alchemist. This man, he did this so Franz Ferdinand could die and Rasputin could live. About it, basically, it's time going backwards. We can't read into him in the modern life. This action is what is not even it's not even a coming together of things past. This action is playing backwards in time again and again and again, in a sense of a looping backward kind of chaos thing. It's a theory cell piece, basically. The idea of retrochronics.
Did either of you wonder what the title was about?
I did look up the name. The name is, I got a German family or German family lineage of the first one, and Notting Hill is an English thing. I didn't look into it too deeply.
So Notting Hill's an area in London, but Roman Ungar and Sternberg was a Russian general who was an anti-communist who escaped and led an uprising in eastern Russia and Mongolia against communist China.
Okay. It's a deep cut.
Oh, is he the Baron of Mongolia, the Mad Baron?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if
Because I
he's
know
called
that
the
guy.
Mad Baron, but I mean, he was absolute Chad. There are some very, very excellent photos of this guy. I know that I'm missing something here, because I don't see the connection to London in this.
The Notting Hill part.
Yeah, I don't see the connection to London. Roman is the name of the.
We are talking about the same guy, I think.
Roman von Ungar Sternberg, but this guy's name is Roman Darset. I don't know what the Darset reference is, frankly. But I feel like based on the other information in this, that it does have some meaning that reveals that there are clues in the naming here that I am unable to put together, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wanted to reread this piece. This is one of the few pieces in here that I actually did not get a chance to reread. But it's definitely, if you're a theory cell and like a concept, like this is the concept, one of the big concept pieces here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but kind of on a base level, this is a story of someone who was, taking this at face value, that he was an OPSEC master who was independently a genius who managed to carry off this. Basically, in one fell swoop, make himself a great man of history. Whether or not you agree that Manhattan deserves to or needs to be wiped off the map, which I will not share my opinions on here.
Oh, what about Dime Square, Cat? We can't lose that.
What about Dasha?
Oh no. Oh no. I've never listened to Red Scare, sorry.
I only listen for the BAP episodes. Thank you very much. All right,
but
I'm totally
if we were to roll it back, maybe it says Darset himself stands in eternal cipher, the primordial chaos from which we continually emerge. So maybe this person is an internal atavistic resistance.
Right, he's a conduit.
Like von Ungar Sternberg, who gives the story its name, someone who fought in a great war and refused to surrender when the war was lost and continued to fight and find new wars to fight in. So that's my, I feel like I'm a little bit on the back foot here, because it seems to me that I am missing something critical in the message that might become clear if I was able to do more research on this this breadcrumb trail.
Yeah, this is definitely a theory cell's trait.
Yeah,
right here.
you guys know my feeling on like metaphor in fiction, so.
Well, it's more illusion, but. Yeah.
But I do agree with Cap. This is atavistic. Yeah, the protagonist, he's an avatar of something. He is simply, if you were looking for clues for the man himself, yet again, you had to go outside the man himself. You had to go to Mad Baron of Mongolia on Sternberg. So I think the clues are basically is the things around him, or the conduits that are acting out through him. He is merely a puppet for the actual meaning of the piece itself.
Yeah,
That's my gut reaction.
That one. And just reality check. We're on page 25, coming up almost 2 hours recording. There's no way we're gonna make it.
I think we need to at least get through Lovecraft. I think we're gonna be able to get through Lovecraft tonight. And that's basically where we have to kill it.
Well, we end on a high note because that is the high note. That's where we're going to get the most biggest discussion is out of that
page
piece.
56. Yeah, so I'll take it if we get to there. Yeah, which I don't think we'll have any issue getting to there for sure. We'll call that a win. Pat ourselves on the back.
Tom, how are you liking it so far? Our unwilling passenger.
Our hostage.
I'm liking it so far. I was 15 minutes before this, I was like, oh God, are we going to be able to talk about it? Because you never know with anything, a date or whatever, and here we are, 3 hours in, and it's like we're on poem 4 of 17, and that's good. This is the sign of good writing if you can talk about it. That being said, poem number 4 of Prairie Folk by N.E. Davis. There are certain good poems you can talk about and certain good poems you can't talk about. And this one leans toward the latter category almost. He's using a very individual vernacular, but it feels very American, but it feels like it's spanning several times, but it's also inventing language. He's not afraid to conjoin words. You'll see him stick 2 words together now and then. I think I circled a few. Did I? Thought I did. But you'll see this throughout here that he's sticking words together. Throat cut, on the first page. Wrath made, and that's something I enjoy a lot. And you can see that in English language poetry. You can see that with. You can see that with Gerard Manley Hopkins. You can see that with E. Cummings. You can see that all over the goddamn place. But Allochthonus, which is a
Autochthon.
Yep. I can't talk. Autochthonous, an indigenous person. Thank you so much. Yeah,
it was full.
Sorry, I got this thing at Jim Beam, and 2.5 hours ago. 2.5 hours ago it was full, and now it's this is a 375 milliliter. It's not the proper big one, but still I'm no But even sober as a judge, I probably would have dropped that. But this is one. The American poet John Ashbery from the New York School. He had a class he taught, and he just had a stamp. And the stamp just said poem. And if he thought it was a poem, he would stamp the student's piece poem, and that was the end of it. And this one, I kind of, if I had that stamp, I would do that. I would say this is a poem. And again, I want to read more of this person. I want to read more of N.E. Davis. It feels dated, but it feels timeless. It feels vernacular, but it feels personal. I don't know. I enjoyed this one a lot. Did this one feel too Teflon for you guys, or did it feel?
Cap, what do you think about it? I'm conflicted with this one.
So there are a few. So you kind of read this as, or I kind of read this as, sort of an ode to, I mean, it's called a Prairie Folk, but it's basically an ode to the settlement of the middle portion of North America, right? So I do like,
sure.
There are some lines that are like very fun, and I feel like this has a ton of. This is the one I think I most want to hear recited, basically, because there's clearly just a absolutely. So, for example, land little trampled by castor fur seekers and Frenchmen, treaty bound to newcomers. From one land of ice to another, it will seem in 6 months' time, but oh so blazing hot in but a few hours. And so that's, so you were saying, Tom, that, when you're jamming words together, fur seekers and Frenchmen, treaty bound to newcomers. That's a good meter, and you're keeping or that's a pleasing meter, I should say.
Yeah, it's conversational without being metronomic. It's to quote Charles Wilson, an American poet I like. He's dancing while sitting down, and I really there's not a lot of poets that can get away with that, and he is.
It's
you
just
chose a fantastic part to
I feel like N.E. Davis would. I'd like to hear it. I'd like to hear it read. It'd be very nice if Passage would. What would be an amazing thing for them to do is to host a space, and have their poets in to recite.
That's a very good idea.
That would be. I'd be there,
idea.
right?
Yeah,
I'd be there.
That's something that we've been. That's something that Apocalypse Confidential. We've been sort of leaning into that. When my book came out, I read the whole goddamn thing, all 50 pages of it, in a Twitter space. And when Anna, it was fun. It was fun. And when Anna Kay's book came out, she read maybe 4 or 5 stories from it and took questions and answers. And it was fantastic. We had like 100 people, on average for these sort of things. So I think that's a fantastic idea. I think anything like that, an audio book or a Twitter space, recorded or otherwise. I think
I'd hate to say that it should not be preserved for posterity, but it also, I kind of think that the specialness of having something like that I don't know. I mean, anyone can record it.
No,
right?
it's very much to your taste. Like for my one, I didn't want to record it because I'm really fussy about that. And Anna, she recorded hers, and it got like 6 times the views as mine. So no, I like that. I would not to keep sounding profound while being as far away from the poem as possible. Work like this, it reminds me of what the fuck is his name? Nicholas Refn. Not directly Nicholas Refn, the director, but I remember seeing his movie Only God Forgives, and I hated it. I thought it was terrible. I liked Drive. I liked a couple other films he did. The Pusher series. Sorry, it'll make sense in a second. I promise. But it didn't make sense to me, and it bothered me. And then I watched the series that he did for, I don't know, Amazon or Netflix or something, Too Old to Die Young. And it was the same tone, the same speech, the same pacing as Only God Forgives. But it was a mini series, so it was like 6 times as long, And like, then I got it, you know what I mean? Like, Only God Forgives was only like, 100 minutes, and it didn't quite wash over me fully, But when he did a mini series for Amazon, like, it was 6 episodes, and like, it worked its way into the system. And with work like this, I want more of it, because I want it to kind of work its way a little more in, you know what I mean? Sorry, there's a long way to say that, but, keep writing, because I don't think, maybe and this might be just me in my little vantage, but I don't think any of these writers in here, the poets at least, have like full works, like full collections out, and it's like I want more of it. You know what I mean? In almost every case.
Well, that's a good criticism to have. Is you wanting more?
Oh, sure,
right,
sure, yeah.
exactly.
That's not that's a good thing.
Yeah, there are. I will say there are a lot of names that I have not seen before. Are published.
That's really refreshing too, though. Honestly, like whenever we get stuff at Apocalypse Confidential that's like I've never heard of this person, or like they don't have a Twitter, it's like fan fucking tastic. Like there's
it's incestuous ecosystem.
Yeah, and Lopez talks about that. Like he wants a fresh blood, to make mistakes, but he wants it to be almost a playground, but like like a forest of people. Like you got the old timers, they do their thing, right? Who are competent, who are capable, but you got to let the flesh blood in, who have been shut out, who've been kept out from polite society. They're going to be rough, but at least they're doing it out there. They're actually doing something. They're expending energy.
Oh, sure. And anything is preferable to an MFA student. So this is I don't think did I harp on Ada Limon before we started recording?
You did.
Well, this before I passed out from alcohol poisoning.
But go off, King.
Fantastic. But before I passed out, like just to have these daisies or whatever, just these people that none of us know about, that don't have books out in any capacity, just writing, really considerable work. It's so refreshing. And when I initially planned to be on this, I thought it was just going to be just poetry, and I sort of thought to myself, like, well, these people don't meet. Sorry, I'm drunk. These people don't meet. These people don't know me. Jesus Christ, I don't really know these people. What's a good way to find commonality? Hatred. So I found the current American poet laureate, Ada Limon. And I found her poem. The poem is called "Service," and it's absolutely vile. It's terrible. It makes you want to, kick a dog or something. The final stanza. That strong yellow stream seemed to be saying, "Girl, no one's going to tell me when to take a leap, when to bow down, when not to fight." So right then, in the dim lights of the strange garage, I lifted my skirt and pissed like the hard bitch I was. Just absolutely, it's slow pitch softball. It's pedestrian alliteration. This is the person that will read poetry at a presidential inauguration, ostensibly.
Imagine the smell.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine the smell. In November of all
I
times.
refuse.
But again, as much as we like to get down on ourselves about the diminutive nature of what we're trying to do, and the echo chamber, like we're some random person in fucking Kentucky is miles ahead of this shit. And that person's just running on piss and vinegar and archive.org. PDFs of books.
Poor choice of words.
This.
Oh wait, what did I say? What did I say? Did I say something bad?
The piss theme.
Piss and vinegar.
Theme.
Yes.
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay. Sure.
I'm sensing a strong piss theme. There's, in terms of evacuation, there is actually a really good line in this one. This dirt black like God's own night soil.
No, I like that. And
that's this gets thrown around a lot, and I never say this, but that is like a McCarthyism. Like that's a McCarthyist. A McCarthy. I don't want to say McCarthyist. It's not like McCarthyism, but it's like a Cormac McCarthy turn of phrase.
No,
this dirt black like God's own
high
night
praise.
soil, and it's
absolutely
that is a
sure.
real killer right
there.
No,
and this is the virtue of American vernacular. You have this beautiful poetic sort of typewriter rhythm. It's fantastic. This is fuck the French. Fuck the Italians. Fuck Dante. This is you
if
were.
If they wanted to be taken seriously, they would have written in English.
Yeah, you were. You, dear listener, were born into the avant-garde. Use that. Act accordingly.
I was on for a bit. I assume you guys are still talking about Prairie folk, and if so, I'm gonna beg that we move on to.
Yeah, that's probably
what's next?
So up next, we're on Jador by.
It's a very
Karis.
Ungabian pronunciation, Kat. Jador.
He doesn't have the Gabian Geist. He can't.
Nice.
He can't.
And
he can't fake
every hour I have to plug my own shit. I have a line in Pale Townie where the end rhyme is Jador, because with Pale Townie it's I took the poem from Pale Fire and I kept all the end rhymes from the poem in Pale
Yep.
It's 999 lines, and one of those ends with "door," and I made it Jador, the French, I adore. So immediately I was ingratiated with this poem because I despise the French, I despise Baudelaire, I despise Mallarmé, and I used it, and he used it. So good for all of us. But yeah,
Base Pale Fire enjoyer.
If you hate the French,
that's not really true. I just like
what's it
to
called?
tousle their hair. But sorry.
They just appropriate all French things.
No, absolutely. That's
if you hate the French, just appropriate France, like Camp of the Saints by Jean Raspail.
I've never heard of that book. What's that book about?
Oh, don't open that can of worms.
I don't know. Current events. A decreasingly science fictional account.
But this one I was a little mixed up on. It's very plain. It's very quick. It's over as soon as it's begun. It has a very quick sort of volta to it. I wanted to compare this to a earlier American poet, Emily Dickinson. Her poem number 608, because she didn't title much at all. You know what? Fuck it. I've drank a whole bottle of Jim Beam.
Read it.
Yeah, let's read the goddamn Emily Dickinson poem.
Recite.
Let the chips fall. Oh, okay. I ran out of bookmarks, so I was using toilet paper. That's a bit abject. Okay. This is Emily Dickinson, number 608. The first line being, afraid. Of what am I afraid? Not death, for who is he? The porter of my father's lodge, as much abasheth me. Of life, for odd I fear a thing that comprehendeth me. In one or two existences, as deity decreed. Of resurrection, is the east afraid to trust the morn, with her fastidious forehead, as soon impeach my crown. So that was what I put alongside this one, just because I had this sort of, just sort of a sense of, I don't know, supremacy. This idea of, something might not be working out for me, but, I'm working out for me, and I'm writing, and I have a way to synthesize negative and positive. But this is a rather short one, so let's read it real quick. This is Jador by Karis. That's all we have. We keep forgetting to say names. So, Jador, I adore in French, by Karis. And this is also a pun. We've got, I don't know how many puns we've hit by now,
Yeah, it's a bilingual pun.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
The poem, though, it's 3 couplets, 6 lines. I see you there, standing tall, I used to hold your hand. I held it oft in front of all with pride, each time and then. They said, we'll have none of that, with fear's relations end. Then loss on loss, enormous cost, when from courtesy I ran. Now stealing for my moment in public once again. Oh, so behold my chance to hold and say good day to them. So it's sort of a hand poem. We have this prominence of the hand for a relationship, and then a post-relationship sort of prominence.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. I thought maybe it felt imagistic, but maybe it felt a little dull. The knife, from image to image felt a little dull. But I enjoyed it overall. Poetry, according to me, and according to Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound has, in one of his essays, has 3 definitions of poetic value. One is mellow poetic, and that is essentially a charging of language. And the shorter the poem is, the more charged the language is, and the shorter the poem is, the more you have to charge your language. And I think this achieves that, and I enjoyed it. And again, I would like to see more. I'd like to see more poems from this person. But how did you guys find this one? Do you think this was and I guess, and even with Apocalypse Confidential, if a poem's good or bad, I don't really care if it adheres to the theme or not. If it's good, put it out. I don't care if it's, a couple neighborhoods away. Is this relevant to our theme? Do we care if it's relevant or not? And do we, like it otherwise?
So I'm not sure, and I may be having a limitate. This may be a skill issue on my part. I'm not sure if it's the theme, but I mean, there's like an exit and a return, and it seems that stealing from my moment in public once again. Oh, so bold, my chance to hold and say good day to them. It seems like a flight from a relationship, possibly like an actual like wedding at the altar, and then a return to a similar like public ceremony. But I could be misinterpreting that, and like maybe that's just my certified wife guy brainworms.
The wedding might be right. I viewed it as like a relationship, like actual like holding hands, and then the breakup, and then like going out again. But same basic idea. The wedding's an interesting angle.
That is actually. Through.
Yeah, I will say I really liked the second couplet just from like the bounciness of it. They said we'll have none of that with fear relations end. Then loss on loss, enormous cost. When from courtesy I ran. Like it's very like I don't know. That's like it. That seems it's like an English country poem. You know what I mean?
Great tempo.
All right, and that's where they introduced the internal rhyme. Loss on loss, enormous cost. I'm a sucker for internal rhyme, and I enjoyed that. And that's kind of where it starts setting off. And
I mean, absolutely, like if that had zero meaning and no relevance to anything else, I just really like how it sounds.
Rolls off the tongue really well.
And that's not not advice at all. There's some of my favorite poets are just purely their prime directive is sound. I haven't name dropped a poet here in a minute. I would highly recommend in terms of this one, Edith Sitwell. Edith Sitwell was a aristocratic, very odd. Her writing was odd. She personally, physically, had a very angular look to her, but she was an incredibly rhythmically inventive English poet. She did a series of poems called Facade. They were set to music by the English composer and librettist William Walton. Edith, whatever I just said, Facade. It's fantastic. Look it up. It's worth your looking up. But I really enjoy there's a lot in here that is adherent to verse and a lot that's not, and I like that it's both. I think that goes. I think that's a lot to the credit of who was selecting the poetry here. They were open to a couple different schools of what is pleasant poetry. So that's it was Arthur Powell, correct?
Yes, it was Arthur Powell.
Yeah, so that's something I like throughout. But yeah, it's small. I wish it wasn't as small. It could be sharper, but I enjoyed it, and I would give this a shot again. This is my razor. I would send this to Apocalypse Confidential. We're closed for subs right now, but as of January 1st, go on.
Would you say give me Jamor?
Boo! Not even I would have done that, you bastard.
God damn it.
Boo.
Oh my god.
Jamor. So I'm hitting the buzzer. Bzz, 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 bzz. Also, for the record, for anyone listening to this podcast, these guys said we're going to go through this entire book tonight in one sitting.
No,
6 hours. 6 hours. Let's do it.
What are we at now? What are we at?
Page 34. Well, we're just turning to page 34.
Jesus Christ! Only 150 pages.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a 230-page book, or something like that. So,
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh. Just
wake up screaming.
I
I will say you should be courteous here. So after Jador, there is a 2-page spread, which is a visual art piece called "After the Humans" by Justin A.W. Blair. It is sort of a landscape with silhouetted animal figures in, almost somewhere between an oil painting, cross stitch, and MS Paint. Not to make that sound dismissive, because I think it's pretty interesting. But I wish that this had an artist statement. I really. There are a few spreads interspersed through here that aren't named on the page or on the facing page and don't have an artist statement associated with them. And I mean, I think that would have been a good idea. That is one criticism I have with the layout, although these are named in the back. And while I'm at it, I should say that the portrait of Ted Kaczynski that we noted earlier as part of Paper Wolves, that is Ted by Matthew the Stoat, who is, I believe, one of the judges for the forthcoming Passage Prize.
Oh,
yeah, you know what this image reminded me. It was like a little bit of a Navajo art vibe to it. Some with the circles.
I got pixel art.
Well, it's pixel arty, but there's something like about the sun design, the bird design. I don't know. It is a cool image. All right. I'm flying ahead, back to page 34, baby. And I think this might be our last poem for this session. Then we have 2 fictions, and I think we're probably going to call it there. Oh, no, there's another poem. The fun don't stop, baby. Yeah, go for it. A Partial Taxonomy of Loss by Ryan Taylor.
With this one, A Partial Taxonomy of Loss, I would sort of put it in the same boat as a couple poems in this packet, such as A Prairie Folk, and there was another one. I think it's a little farther down the road, but where I just want to get out my John Ashbery stamp and just say it's a poem. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. There's a sense of generative loss. There's a sense of death populating the poem. There's sort of this equivalency of death populating it and dreams populating it. I enjoyed, in this, as well as a few more in this collection, there was sort of an uncanny sense of disclosure and vernacular. It reminded me, and we haven't talked about him yet, and he's one of my favorite poets, personally, and just in terms of what I like to read. It reminded me of the Southern poet Frank Stanford, who, if we haven't mentioned him before, I don't think we have, I would love to bring him up. Read Frank Stanford. Read his collection, The Singing Knives. Read his collection, The Battlefield Where the Moon Says I Love You. But I enjoyed this incredibly. I think it's a fantastic opening stanza. I'll go ahead and just read it here for the sake of reading it here. Today they opened a fire exit in the sky. No, today they didn't. Today, out of the darkness, a machine gun opened up. It opened up the darkness, which was coal-black tea. So then, the machine gun was the light. Then the light was a window over me, and the darkness wobbled and meant a lot. That's a very disarming final line here. And it's just this fantastic idea of suicide and war. I like this one a lot. It reminded me of my good dear poet Frank Stanford. How did this hit you guys? What is the bioavailability of grief? Another interesting line here. What did this do for you guys?
Well, it depends on whether or not the grief is in a solution, or if it's in pill form, or if it's taken as part of a full meal. In which case, the bioavailability.
Millennial cringe.
Sorry.
Finally, it's not me.
Meals and grief.
Sorry, go ahead, Gabe.
Awful.
No, I was about to say, I like this piece quite a bit. If it had a mood, it had a style, it had, I feel attached to certain lines. I love my one-liners. My love moved through dreams just to be seen. Like that line touched me very well. It could be considered a corny lyric on its own, but I liked it quite a bit. And it has a personality to it. Like the opening line's great too. Today they opened a fire exit in the sky. Like each of the beginning paragraph was actually quite strong too. I felt like it had a very strong personality. Where Jador, it felt ethereal to me.
The section that I like is, today my love traveled to the central conflagration. The world is too awful to be so bright. The world is so awful. It forgets daily its billion Turin horses and cows and chickens and third graders. Which is a Nietzsche reference. Right. That's the Turin horse is the horse that made Nietzsche go insane.
Oh,
from the tragedy.
I am not afraid to admit that went over me. I just thought it was. I didn't pick up on the full heft of that reference. So nice. That's even.
Yeah, that's the Nietzsche deep cut. That's the B-sides.
You out Nietzsche'd me on this podcast. Wow.
Well, that's where reading comprehension will get you, Gabe. But wow. So that's a deep cut. And I'm very I also enjoy the reference to marvelous bonobo ethics. That's a great one to work in. Now, obviously not a Nietzsche reference, but the chimpanzee versus bonobo theory of human behavior, of violence versus it's basically bonobos are polyamorous long-housed chimps, and chimps are violent masculinist. Yeah.
I would never be a polyamorous chimp. Good. I would.
You're lucky. You're lucky. We're closer to.
But that being said, I can't stress just line to line this. There's a certain cutting. There's a certain Ivy kudzu sort of virtue to poetry where you can cut a line off and you can sort of feel life coming out of that line and growing again, like ivy cutting. There's something to it, and I think this has that. I really think this has that. And there's a certain you can feel personal stakes in this when he says, my brother died 10 years ago. Now it's like he never even lived. This poem and his response to this prompt, it doesn't feel like It doesn't feel like a workshop exercise. It feels like there's some stakes to this for him, which doesn't make or break a poem, but yeah. It's not lost on me.
Yeah, I love that framing. Probably one of my favorites. Anything else on this one?
No, that's good, buddy.
Awesome. And we'll edit, blah, blah, blah. We can skip ahead to On the Road. This is by Aldo Johnson, yeah. Third place winner.
Okay, yeah. So this is On the Road by Aldo Johnson, which I think there might have been a book titled that at some point.
Doesn't ring a bell.
But more
by a Frenchman, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. By
the Great French Road Trip.
But this is I should point out in terms of strict formalism, this is I think this is technically a strict sonnet. This is in the sonnet form. The sonnet form is from the Italian word sonetto, which means little song, because that's essentially what it was. Most likely derived from the provincial troubadours. And what the sonnet form is it is 14 lines. Generally, it is in 3 quatrains and then a couplet, although that's not strictly what it has to be. Even Shakespeare had irregular couplets, so don't get too bogged down by it. It's generally 3 quatrains and a couplet in iambic pentameter. And this achieves that, and that itself is no disgrace. It's hard to write a good couplet in 2023. It's hard to write a good sonnet in 2023. And he gets away with it. He on paper, he does it. And this is, it has tinges of futurism. It has tinges of speed and acceleration being the chief
energy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it has energy being the chief virtue. Acceleration is the god of this. On the Road by Elder Johnston. Raced west, young man, into the closing maw. And again, he's also hitting perfect I am for most of this.
Perfect meter.
Yeah. Which is hard.
Well, but
is hard to do.
But the second one is the second line here. Of dusk, unbounded black horizons wait. Is that not a trochee? Or is that an
dusk unbound?
Maybe I'm counting.
I think he's okay. Of dusk unbounded black horizons wait. Now there's also a million ways to read these things. One of my favorite poets.
Fair.
One of my favorite poets of the 19th century, Gerard Manley Hopkins. He had his own definition for how to scan his own poetry, and my favorite critic of the 20th century, Ivor Winters, thinks he's retarded. He thinks he can't even scan his own poetry. So there's no shame in having a different opinion on scansion. But raced west, young man, into the closing maw. Of dusk unbounded black horizons wait. Night's highway heeds the ageless vital law. Of speed, of thrill, cast off your license plate. So more or less it keeps the iams. Now, that being said, there are a slew of approved iambic substitutions for iambic pentameter. So you can in fact substitute trochees. Excuse me, hiccuping here at certain points. And
that's why you're here, Tom.
We assume you're not just making this up.
Because you had no idea.
No,
yes.
You can even. This isn't like me, being like a little 20th century shitlord. You can read, Paradise Lost, which is in blank verse, which is, blank iams, But if you get a decent volume of that, you can see there's several parts where there are certain liberties taken from the meter, with justification. I always like to think of poetry as, on stand, a witness on the stand before a judge, and it's justifying certain devices, and I think that's a decent way to look at it. Sorry, we're getting into the asshole here. We're disappearing up the asshole. But I thought, again, while it's no disgrace to write a competent sonnet in strict sonnet form, which this has done, I don't think it told us a terrible amount more than a prose paragraph could. I don't think it told us, there are certain poems in strict meter where it feels limited by it, and there are certain poems in strict meter where it feels almost like a trampoline, or it feels like DNA, where you're seeing these rhymes and it feels like you're mainlining the universe or whatever, True Detective style.
Yeah.
And I think this falls into the less commendable category, where I think it achieves the constraints, but I don't think it gets the full leverage from them. But that's my own take on it. But I do enjoy it.
Well, I do kind of feel like this one is very exciting. It's very exciting. It's extremely kinetic. You have accelerate. You see the road ahead, but darkly lit through glowing glass headlights. Faint silhouettes of Joshua trees outspread are witnesses as fuel the soul ignites. And I mean, it's literally you're on.
That's my favorite stanza. I should just say that. That's fantastic. I have nothing against that.
That's the best one. You are driving towards the sunset, at breakneck speed through the American Southwest. Like this is a love sonnet to automotive freedom. essentially. Like that, it's like a great American tradition of the like, that balanced engineering, civilization, refinement of an automobile, and the like unbridled freedom of having this device under you, propelling you forward in the middle of goddamn nowhere. It's like with a car you can go wherever you want.
What's that?
Another of the best blank verse poets.
What's that? What's that a reference to? Can you explain that to me?
Oh yeah, well,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I know.
I was gonna say this is kind of a piece actually with The Last Beach, which comes later, which I also really liked, which also had that kind of automotive freedom summer, I don't know, kind of exploratory vibe to it. All right, anything else on the road, or good to cruise on?
I thought it was a reiteration of the mission statement, basically, in a good way. In a good way, it hypes you up, and also it integrates the vehicle into nature. The blacktop wilderness is your home, but your mindset must be gasoline and chrome. So it fuses the idea of metal or chrome. Cast off your license plate. Don't be a license plate cuck. It's a cage. It's a collar. You gotta rip it out.
That's a good point. That's
the
a good
blacktop
point.
wilderness.
That's a good point. I would say it invites you into the car. It invites you into the machinations of the automobile. And I think you could sort of put this up against, we haven't got to it yet, The Rotting Boat by Henry Charrier, which I wasn't fond of because it seemed like a failure, especially in regard to this poem, where instead of integrating into a object of dynamism, it was sort of a cough into a napkin.
All right. Up next, we have Stand Clear of the Closing Doors, Please, by David Petritis, which has a nice piece, also by David Petritis, on the facing page, depicting the end of the story. So this is about a young man. This is a one-page flash fiction. I think we've decided to call these ones about a young man taking the right-wing bodybuilder pipeline. That's the story. That's the story. So he, but it's interesting because it sort of mashes all of the everything on the right-wing bodybuilding pipeline into 5 paragraphs that I think a completely baseline person would understand on one reading. What do you guys think?
I think it was basically just an ad for Man's World. It was this for me is the first piece of coal in this collection. Honestly, I love everything. The poetry is fine. The stories were great. All the stories are good. This first story, solid. This Paperwolf's great. This was basically just okay. This is the base shallow levels of like the scene. Yeah, slunking eggs, and he's reading Marcus Aurelius.
Like that's pretty much what it worked up to. Yes, and then with the literally he posts progress pic on the right, like check out my quads, nice glutes.
Oh no, I mean quads visible from the back,
bulging profusely. Yeah, I guess it's really more of a glute shot, money maker.
Describing this. This piece of visual art, and I mean paired together. I think you need to see the same person produce both of these things, right? So there are a couple people in here. I think Shimmy also has both art and writing in the story, or in the book. But David Petritis has done this piece where there are geometric, humanoid forms sitting on the seats of a subway facing each other, looking downcast. And the protagonist of the story is meat-colored, very organic, like fleshy sort of lines rather than geometrically shaped, staring out the shattered end of this subway car at a, green horizon and blue sky, everything else being, gray behind him.
It's the sheeple subway meme, but unironic.
There's a strong lack of irony in this one.
It is extremely direct. It's thematic in the sense that, being focused on your physical well-being is in a sense, being focused on more natural and less civilizational or, not being over socialized. But yeah, I mean, this is gone in a flash.
Yeah, it's a
flash fiction, right?
Yeah, it just did nothing for me. This will be the last thing I say on it. It reminded me of the
Dave Green distributist, father, friend of the show, prudentialist. He had complained that the first Passage Prize smelled like the internet, and this is the only one I would say that really smelled like the internet with the jargon and the specific references, and I think that took away from it a bit.
I will say, and I realize this is like my own vice here, but I had a sensible chuckle at first Ripito, then Marcus Aurelius, then books by men with anonymous names, because like I literally have a first edition of Starting Strength.
How much milk you drinking?
Sorry. No, it's definitely not on the GoMad plan.
Go full T-Rex.
But I cringed when he said Marcus Aurelius. Like, it's such a cliche hustler. Like, the TikTok, the guys like this Daily Stoic. As like out of all the books, like Marcus Aurelius, like the meme Stoic, like.
I have a guy at work that won't shut the fuck up about the Daily Stoic. It's killing me.
You should probably buy him a copy of the Enchiridion of Epictetus, and tell him to read that bad boy.
Watch him get filtered.
Yep, level up. Oh, I don't know how you could. It's like the shortest. I mean, it's a fragment. So,
well, it's a Daily Stoic enjoyer. I don't believe in his IQ is very high.
But yeah. His art's in the right place. Not terrible, but yeah, I think we all had some issues. Most of us had some issues with that one. All right, moving on to
now the star of the night
here. Lovecraft by Justin Lee, first place in fiction. And Cap, did you want to take the first crack at this one? And we've had a slight internal debate about this, about some people's maybe identical speech patterns to certain poems in this short story that I identified.
Listen, and some people have viewed this dialogue as completely separate and totally unlike his own speaking pattern.
Well, let's let a neutral third party, Mr. Capitalisimo, weigh in on this.
Okay, so this is the first place in fiction, Lovecraft by Justin Lee, and the title page of this is a 2-page spread, full color photographed by Spendo, which is Just Send It One, and it is a young lady in a dress holding an axe in what appears to be a dimly lit self-storage facility. So, and it is spooky. I am spooked. So, the story is one of the longest ones in here. This story is written as a letter, as many Lovecraft stories are. The protagonist is writing everything down as part of a therapeutic exercise. his girlfriend has been allegedly the victim of a rape.
Allegedly, not believing all women on this podcast.
Not believing all women. I believe victims, including the falsely accused. So the protagonist Colin is writing down the all of his feelings as he is working through the sort of like cuckoldry, weakness, emotion, and like vulnerability emotions that he has about his girlfriend being raped. And part of how he is dealing with this is also by thinking about the stories that he used to read with his father, which were Lovecraft. And so he's conceptualizing the, this sort of vague, uncaring evilness in the world as Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep or Azathoth or the other mythos,
the entire mythos
entities. Yeah, the mythos itself. Yeah, is the darkness that is present in the real world. And so he is, he's talking about this situation to his landlord,
Mr.
who's
Garrett.
an older man, Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Garrett asks him, and this is an important point, how much do you trust her? And he writes him a letter, and he says, Colin, I just wanted to drop you a note of encouragement. Things happen in life which make absolutely no sense. Hell, sometimes it seems that the wicked are always prospering. I just wanted to let you know that in my experience, people such as Darren, the rapist, never cash in their chips before the house comes down on them. Don't fret long over it, son. I hate adultery with all that I am, and I expect God does too. This champ will get what's his. Come by this week and let me know what's happening with Meredith. You're a good young man, Colin, and I'm confident you will do well by her. Mr. Garrett. Adultery, he'd written. It startled me, and I sat for a while puzzling over it. I thought for a while that Mr. Garrett had conflated his own hurt with mine, or gotten confused. I wondered if perhaps he'd written it in a rush. But the hand was not hurried. Rather, it was precise. Adultery. So, Mr. Garrett's wife had cheated on him 12 years prior, and thus the potential conflation. So things go on. He eventually comes down to Mr. Garrett's shop, which he lives above, and it's a butcher shop. And Mr. Garrett is standing there in full naked apron glory with, let's see, he stood before the chopping block wearing only an apron, covered with a thin mist of red, his naked flesh tight, puckered with goosebumps. Colin, Mr. Garrett said, what are you doing here? So, Mr. Garrett has taken Darren, the rapist, alleged, and laid him out on the slab and is butchering him, completely chopping him up. And so Colin decides to let loose his rage at his feebleness and his cuckoldry and his weird worship of this woman who most likely cheated on him and falsely accused this other guy of rape by helping Mr. Garrett hack the shit out of this dude.
And Mr. Garrett is a champ through the whole thing, by the way. He's like tapping him on the shoulder with the hand.
Mr. Garrett is an
all-star.
Yeah.
Base boomer. He's the noble boomer.
Yeah, he just wants to grill, and if the shortest path to grilling is chopping up Lotharios, he's going to do it. So the little little hook in here is that Darren's father was the guy who cheated on Mr. Garrett, Darren's father was the guy that Mr. Garrett's ex-wife cheated on him with. And Mr. Garrett has done this previously to this kid's father. The entire scenario in which Meredith was penetrated by Darren is that she was comforting him at a party about his missing father. And so there's this, sexual assault, double homicide of the Magi going on here.
What made you think that she was lying about it? Because I had assumed that she was being honest about the rape. I mean, obviously I believe all men, but my default assumption is that she was telling the truth.
Well, the thing that made me think she was lying about it is that she didn't go to the police.
That's what misogynists would say.
And he said he didn't understand why she wouldn't go. There's that, and then there's the, there's also the like meta narrative sense that, that's more humiliating for this character. And the arc of Colin is that he is a turbo cuck who is released from his, from the emotional, shackles that have previously been binding him. He's instead of being intimidated, like literally pissing his bed the first time that his father reads a Lovecraft story to him, to identifying with the crawling with the chaos and embracing it. So that's his release. Because let's see, standing over his body flecked with his blood, that sense of wonderful mystery began to return to me. Even in this, I thought, there's a tinge of the aesthetic. I looked down at my body, at the red sheen of my abdomen, the fresh patriotic stripes on my white briefs, the shade of spent life jellied in lines down my legs. I am beautiful, I thought. I am God.
And it lines up, there's this theme of the power of the father and this like dark vigor related to sexuality and sexual dominance. Because before, I think it's like the scene before the murder, Colin kind of builds up to at least calling the guy to confront him and claim, I know you did something. You didn't go so far as to actually attack the guy, but and I think it was like right after that happens, he has a vision of walking on his father, banging his mother, and it's described really well as just this like big hammy man just pounding down on her from above, and just aligning that.
Yeah. Well, and his father also being like a pastor, and his mom being an uptight, like stereotypical uptight church lady, just absolutely getting railed face down in the pillow. Just like, yeah,
her hands are in fish that she holds the side of the bed.
Getting her fucking back blown out.
Just walking in.
So. And that flashback actually happens right before.
The primal scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and of course Darren. So Colin calls Darren to yell at him, like that's his big thing. He's gonna like yell at this guy for, to his mind, being a rapist, right? That's how he's gonna get back at him. He's gonna call him an asshole. And during that phone call, Darren's like, why the fuck are you calling me? Look, someone's knocking on my door. I don't have time for this mystery shit, so go fuck yourself. Darren hangs up on him, and that's the last time anyone sees him alive. So there's all these like very like creation. The structure of the story is very funny because everything is completely interconnected. Like, it seems like these things could be, from at first blush, it seems like these things might be, random happenstance, but when you get to the resolution of the story, you see that it's just a straight line. So
it's so pulpy too. That twist with his father was the one who cheated on me, so I killed him too.
Yeah, no,
I mean it's
so pulpy
that way.
but it earns it.
It starts with that, much more literary, and then it ends in this just like meat house, but passionate about it. Very earned.
And Colin is really like, I fucking hated this guy. He is so goddamn unbelievably cringe at the beginning of it. There's also like the theme of information he didn't want to have being revealed to him, being this dark enlightenment, which happens in Lovecraft, where the protagonist will be an investigator or an academic and uncover information that leads them down a path, and that's kind of what happened here. In addition to this being something that is written after the fall, or it's not really framed as a fall. It is not. He's better off like in this story versus a normal Lovecraft.
He's become Lovecraft the god. Story. He's embraced the darkness. I wanted to read a line, the Gabe line. Cap, this is where I really want your opinion on. Is this if Gabe wrote poetry? Is this how it would go?
Oh God!
Eve might scintillate in Nasserah sympathy with the watching stars, her great and gracious face a hallowed hanging upon the ink of night. Her forehead is high, but by no means mongoloid. Rather, it bestows the appearance of immemorial youth. Timeless, unconquered, girling beauty. Here it is. Her body, however, is a different matter. The stuff of Jovian myth. Lean and taut, yet buxom and soft enough to make a mystery of whatever grand spirit underpins the universe, and has not crept like an imp into her bed and filled her with titans. Dude, tell me that is not Gabe core.
Hold on. Her forehead is high, but by no means mongoloid. Rather, it bestows the appearance of immemorial youth, of a timeless and unconquerable girline beauty. Her body, however, is a different matter, the stuff of Jovian myth. Lean and taut, yet buxom and soft enough to make a mystery of whatever grand spirit underpins this universe. has not crept like an imp into her bed and filled her with
crying when I read this. Like, unironically, I had tears in my eyes. I was like, oh my God, this is Gabe.
Crept like an imp into her bed and filled her with titans is a
that's a Gabe gem. That is a Gabe gem.
A fucking wonderful line.
This is in character, just for reference to, like, it's meant to be kind of silly. So
yes, no, absolutely, it is meant to be It is meant to be purple. Even the cringe protagonist acknowledges it as cringe. So it is the images on the wall projected by the great fire and the people marching by with statues of animals. Like, it is that many levels of narrative in, and they were on levels of cringe that were not previously known to be possible.
Dionysian paradise. So just, I don't know. It's Kino. This story, like, just to I put a pin in it. Obviously, if you guys have more thoughts, I'd love to hear it. But just 10 out of 10. I love this one completely. It was very worthy of first place.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish off. I also love this very much, so you should finish off.
Yeah. So, I think in a kind of in a sideways way, this also gets points for being on theme, for sure. But it's I'm not sure how many more times and we can talk about Lovecraft. And it's going to happen again in this book.
It's funny you say that, because actually that was my one thought too. I was like, there's no... It lacks the quotable quote. It lacks like the referenceable title because of the Lovecraft being in the title. I actually didn't... it's very well executed and done in it, but it's like, where's that Spencerian? I'm going to be able to say Spencerian in reference to the story, because it's that good. But there's no... Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to parse that way because it uses old language.
Well, it's not a riff on Lovecraft. It does have a certain similar story structure elements to it.
Same energy, same theme. It's a beautiful love letter.
Well,
not only to it's not to the meme of Lovecraft, but to actually the spirit of Lovecraft. This is peak reactionary horror.
Yeah, it's let's see, who is it? It's like non-shitlib Matt Ruff. Where Matt Ruff is the guy who wrote Lovecraft Country.
Oh, fuck me.
Where it's non-cringe, it's non-shitlib Matt Ruff.
No, but that's an insult, because it's not even based on, like, I would fucking assume the shitlib, like, it's all about the archetypes of Lovecraft, not actually the ethos or the spirit or anything. This actually, even if you take the Lovecraft references out, his journey is deeply Lovecraftian.
No, yeah, I agree, but that is also how Lovecraft Country is. No. I don't know, have you read it? God,
no.
Oh, yeah. Well, aside from the black people worship, it's very readable as a modern version of like a Lovecraft thing. But again, in that, H.P. Lovecraft is known as a person in that book. Is known as an author in that book. Right? In the fictional world of that book, people have read H.P. Lovecraft. Although the mythos is treated as real in it too, so I guess there's that. I don't know. Maybe
I can only imagine the commentary.
Maybe I want to retract what I previously said, and we should just not go down this road. Just cut this whole thing. Just cut this whole episode. Yeah.
Do you have anything else? I feel like you didn't have your proper chunk bite at this.
No, I wanted because this is my favorite. I was screaming to get to this part. This is one of the best short stories I have ever read. I love this story so much. Y'all know I don't like cliche, I don't like pastiche. This is not pastiche of Lovecraft at all. It has a spirit of Lovecraft. It has everything about this is constructed beautifully. It has a sense of venom. This story is filled with venom. And the style, the tone, he plays so much with theme, right? And disgust excites. Just purely, you smell shit, you will slam the door on the stench. It has an energy to it. As soon as you read it, as soon as you start reading it, right, you have this protagonist, and the voice is very strong. Justin has a very good control of voice to an absurd degree. I wonder how much drafts he went through for this, because the construction of this is masterful, right? Because we learn about the rape, and I think it only works if the rape did happen. My biggest supporting evidence is how she reacts to him having the Humbert, which, by the way, is a great love letter to Humbert. As a big fan of Lolita myself and the Nopikov style of alliteration, I did love it. The Dionysian and everything, right? And of course, Lolita itself is a reference to Poe. So he says he fused it with Poe. He basically made two Poe references in one, but her reaction to it, remember what happens, right? She starts crying, right? Because it reminds her of that time where a pervert high school teacher asked for her panties. Something like that. If the
pervert grade school teacher.
Oh, even better, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it takes out it makes it too comfortable Yet again, I like the fact that if the rape did happen, it makes you uncomfortable. It makes it more disgusting. It gives
this
more
girl
energy.
has this primordial urge to be sneeded by all the world, and this guy is like he has to become the monster to sneed her again. I'm sorry, Gabe. I just want to say sneed. Keep going.
This is the sneed piece. This is the one you sneak the sneed thing into.
Sneed core.
I mean, I think that it does work better that it's not entirely clear whether she was or was not.
Both are valid reads of it, I think. But I assumed she was.
Yeah, because the emotion is there. Because you could feel the disgust when he lets it through. He's like, "You're disgusting. Poets are damned and dirty people," and like he lets out the rage. He lets out the real emotion. He lets out the nature, right? But then he reels it back in. He keeps on reeling. The protagonist is he's a normie, right? He's actually a normie dude. He's a Reddit atheist, too. Right? He's a Reddit millennial. Yes. Yeah, he tries not to worship her, but of course he has a simp. He wrote a poem about her, right? He keeps it in his pocket. He says not to worship women. Mm-hmm. He fails, right? He even says, I fail at that. And his relationship with Lovecraft is his cosmology. He every emotion he ascribes it to Azola, or I can't say the names, but he attributes it to everything. And he even used God as Lovecraftian. And yet again, you have a perfect... It ties in even the theme of the book beautifully. For a quote, "God bless you, Mr. Garrett, you fucking lunatic. Ah, Christ and Cthulhu." Christ and Cthulhu plays beautifully in there because they're intertwined as one. They are one, right? But it's Christ as Leviathan. It's Jobic, right? Because he views everything as under the sea. Life is underwater. Everything that's profound is under the water. It's murky. It's not foreseen. You can see ripples. You can see a little fin, but you don't see everything. He even uses a quote from the Bible, something 42, that describes God as a murky water, or the ocean depths, or whatever. And one thing that is strong, yet again, as a tragedy, he says, Darren Peabody took that away from me. Not Darren, what's his name? Darren Pedersen. Darren took that away from me. That my ability to wonder, to fantasize. He took the fantasy away from me. And that was too sincere of a line. It felt this genuine feeling of, in reality, it's not the event that made it disgusting. Because Mr. Garrett, he knows everything from the jump. He is Old Testament. He is the objective reality, right? He says what it is. It was adultery, right? Very clearly, right? And his reaction, the protagonist's reaction to the claim is like, adultery? He's like, wait, like, no, but like it happened to her. Like, what, do I own her in like a Marxian sense? I'm like, well, my reaction visual was, no, you don't fuck in a Christian sense. In a man sense, it was your girl. She is yours. The heir is a possessive, and it's a rightful possessive. And he can't... You can tell there's a back and forth constantly where he's like, oh, Meredith, oh, my Meredith, is it a tragedy? And using his purple prose. And it goes on to almost corniness, and it's cringe, right? But purposely cringe. And then he just lets it out. And he's like, you know what? He tainted you. You are disgusting to me. He made you disgusting to me when he came in you. Right? And it's visceral, and it's raw. And he talks about, that dirty imp filled his titans in you. Just something brutal and disgusting. It fills you in that, and you feel the energy go through him, right? And he finally works up the energy to call him, like you said, and he just wants to yell at him. He even calls himself a would-be murderer. Like he is a cuck the entire time.
No,
right?
I'm pretty sure he's basically the imp in that Humbert line. He makes himself the imp. He asks why, given her perfect form, no imp has snuck into her bed and filled her with titans.
Yeah, he's saying it's a prophecy. It's like oddly a prophecy, right? Yeah. It's a comedic, but it's disgusting. You feel it in your stomach. That's the great thing about this, is you feel it, and the reactionary elements are great, right? Because other than being a pastiche of Lovecraft, it's the spirit of Lovecraft. The opening of his father is pure Lovecraft, actually. He is a very strong presence, but it's devoid of the father, much like Lovecraft and his father, if you know a little bit about any of his lore. and how he dies. Where does he die? Port-au-Prince, right? Where is that? Haiti, right? So it's the savage, it's the Caribbean, it's
from a flesh-eating
other
virus too. So this sort of mysterious just thing that strikes out uncontrollably.
Right. This uncontrollable mindless horror, right?
And that's the thing with a lot of people, with people who try to satirize Lovecraft or try to understand him or try to do anything of this, they take away the biological element. They take away the racism, for example, when it sterilizes him, because it is a deep. All his demons, all his are flesh. They are grotesque. They are disgusting. There's a distance in the fact that it's in space, but it is tumorous. It is cancerous. It infects the humans. Everything, there is a deep paganistic energy to Lovecraft. And he's a man out of time, viscerally man out of time. Even in his letters, based on you read books from the 1920s, he speaks like he's trying to LARP as like Poe. He's a Tory. Tory in every sense of the word. And much like the reactionary element, like if you were to give this to like a 1990s, like classical liberal kind of type, like they would be okay with it, like, oh yeah, of course modern, like I can definitely see it as soon as the word rape and it's based on a man's, not even him being raped but his girl being raped, like the mainstream would not take the story at all. And like the 90s centrist liberal, like the classical liberal who remember the 90s, like, oh, it's a good story, but they won't take the beautiful reactionary element in the room, right? Much like Picasso, who was a master painter who could paint a beautiful bull just by using the outlines and geometry. Right, the disgust really hits in when they talk about Darren, the racial element of Darren, right? Because
he's a Dago.
Yeah.
Yes.
He is canonically a Med.
It's never explained. Is he a Med? Is he says the Dago without the Italian? He's not Egyptian, but he certainly is darker than a Caucasian. So and the thing is, he doesn't bring it up the fact Meredith brings up the fact that he is like the black Egyptian from Nigahotep or whatever the demon's called, right? The creeping darkness god, right? I was called Hotep right now.
Nyarlathotep.
That one.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Hotep. So and you feel the visceral disgust in you. Like, why did he bring up the race? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the racial element comes in, it creeps in, right? And the thing is, he's never visually described.
The crawling chaos.
Yes, it crawls in. That's the point of reactionary horror, right? It crawls in. You feel the visceral disgust, right? And he's impotent. His entire life is cuckolded, right? His father cuckolds him, quite literally. Makes him piss his bed. His father's killed.
Well, that would not be literal. That would not be literal.
In a sense, in the Freudian sense, he's cuckolded, right? But he is taken away by the ever eternal other, and he blames it on Cthulhu, like that beautiful. That is actually a very good line when he talks about somewhere in like bumfuck Indiana, underneath a church pew is "fuck you Cthulhu" in like Sharpie, like it's a very good dialogue. It's good personality. It's filled like, and he's
great empathy for like the feeling of victimization at the start, like just really well done.
He is 100% real. It's an emotional roller coaster because it's played so straight at first. With yet again, like I never doubted the rape for a second, to be honest. I was the wholesome chuggus
Milady.
Fake cell, right? I'm sorry. Yes, I was Milading. I was white knighting, as we used to call back in the day, right? I was white knighting, right? Because the pain in there felt too real. And describing how she views the world as everything is gray, and her eyes are permanently gray now.
Yeah,
it felt too sincere. It felt too real. And then you have based fucking Mr. Garrett,
Mr. Garrett,
who is the unit. He is the good man. He is the simple man. He's the one who quotes the Bible at him, right? Classic. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he's also like drinking coffee out of basalt mugs.
Yeah.
Which is I mean, that's kind of
hardcore.
amazing. right?
Oh,
It's this like stone that's
the bottom of a volcano
for monoliths, for ageless monoliths. Like
Literally
it's
something
like,
from a Lovecraft
story. It is. Yeah, it's his cyclopean fucking coffee mug or whatever. Although that means large, but it's very like. It's the first hint that there's something up with Mr. Garrett, and that he's drinking, that he has a bunch of basalt coffee mugs.
Yeah, volcanic, and he works at a butcher shop, which is obviously, like, you can see that kind of a mile away, that something would be there.
Right.
And I rolled my eyes. I'm like, oh, come on, don't do something cliche, right? Because it is pulpy. And the thing is, it has the most pulpiest ending ever, where everything ties in together in a straight line. It turns out that Garrett, it earns it, though. It's done so sincerely, and he does the mythos so well because he references them. He references the mythos. Everything is laced with references. But when he's walking away from her place for the first time because he can't get it up, she says she's ready to have sex. Because notice after he beats the shit, after Mr. Garrett let off some steam on a pig's body, he has his sexual virility. He gets his virility back, as he references in the Dante section. But I can't remember exactly. She said he says, "I know you said you were ready."
They start and she wasn't ready.
But then he says
she's not
he
ready.
Can't perform. Then he said
he had to stop because she was terrified.
Right, exactly. Which I also again lends credence to. I think that was actually true. And when he walks,
fair enough.
And when he walks back home to Mr. Garrett's place. That's when he noticed how distant the stars are and how completely, utterly alone and detached from everything is. How meaningless everything is. How pathetic he is. Right? Which is, of course, if you know your Lovecraft lore, his first breakdown was when he was being an astrology student and, space fundamentally terrified him in that same way. So it was a beautiful, you don't need to know Lovecraft for that to work. Right, him realizing independently that's the crushing reality of complete isolation is already good enough on its own. But to actually narrativize Lovecraft as a human being, everything about Lovecraft, the reactionary, the racial, the tribal element as well, is a visceral. And that's the thing with people to understand about Lovecraft is that he deeply had a visceral. He was from the above high. People were like, oh, a giant space god. No. Lovecraft was from Providence, right? He was an Anglo to his core. He was brought down to earth, brought down to the filth. He was
Are you saying Anglos are like
with the organic
superior beings, Gabe? I'm a little lost on this train of thought.
No, the city on the hill aspect. I'm talking about from his origins, from the cosmology. From his view, he was from New England. He was a pure New England stock, and he's forced into the urban, to the city, and this biomass. It's bio horror. It's not cosmic horror. It's fundamentally bio horror. And of course, it's in a butcher shop, and he feels connected because at the end, when he finally feels like a man again, after being cucked his entire life, like the ending, you feel empowered. It's like base. It's primal. It's real. He feels the blood on himself. He's chopping Darren apart. But then you kind of realize fundamentally, it's a great point to end because we never know what he says next, right? Because, okay, yes, sweetie, I had my moment of masculinity.
Oh, he's pushing her face down that night, dude.
Because he's not going to leave her.
You know how this ends. The only thing I don't think I agree on is the father relationship. I don't think the father was cucking him at all. Like, he even makes a comment. He's like, read these stories so you don't become a fag. He literally says that. And then to me, he's like, his father's indoctrinating him into this, like, this timeless, ageless, dark power of virility, masculinity, and there's like an ugly side to it, but it's like something you need to be inculcated in, and he's exposing his son at a young age to this. And then his father is torn away by a similar sort of darkness, like this disease, and then he grows up to be maybe a weaker man in the absence of that, or maybe just the culture made him a weaker man, and now he's reconnecting after this traumatic experience and like the ultimate disempowerment. He's like looking to the stars and he's seeing himself from that view again. I didn't consider the Lovecraft like panic attack element, but that's a good consideration. I could see that being part of it too, like the inside baseball. But is viewed as like he views himself as, you know, I don't know, insert hard to pronounce Lovecraft monster name here, and then he becomes it. So anyway, I'm going to bat for the dead dad. Is all.
Oh yeah, well, but the reason why I say that because the flashback right
just because of the primal scene, or
because of the primal scene, and notice what he says. His father's face goes from disgust, anger, shame, but also a twisted face of
pride.
Yeah, pride. And what he's done, and being flexing on his, and notice right after that scene,
I fucked your mom.
Yeah.
Okay, Dad.
Listen, his dad fucks his mom, and Mr. Garrett fucks his bull, right? Because the scene after that, the very next page, basically, he walks in Mr. Garrett completely naked, chopping apart Garrett. The protagonist, Colin, he doesn't even get to kill Garrett. He was going to have a male Karen rant at him.
Darren, Mr. Garrett, sorry. And Darren.
Sorry,
yeah,
Darren. He was going to go like, you raped my girlfriend, and that's like. So like
you are so canceled.
This is very toxic behavior. I do not expect this kind of behavior from a POC. Right? You know what I mean? It's like he's very Reddit, but his father takes away his innocent view of his mother.
Before I get mad at you for raping my girlfriend, I would like to acknowledge that. This is taking place on land that wasn't right.
Yeah. Oh, fuck, that's a joke in a later story. Yeah. But look, he even says, Mr. Garrett served as something of a surrogate father to me. Right? A surrogate father to me, in oddly more ways than one. Because
refers to him as son. Yeah.
And he created the situation, right? Because Mr. Garrett unintentionally killed this guy's father, Emmett Till. Let's call him that, because it was also oddly...
It's definitely not what his name was.
Right? No, but I remember where Mr. Garrett says his wife, his Italian wife,
Cecilia,
was fucked by her father, and Sicilia, Italy, right? I won't get into that, but so oddly enough, he is his father because he created the situation by proxy, right? Because he killed Darren's dad, right? And of course, the very meat hook that Darren got his marriages with was a sob story about his dad, right? So, in more ways than one, Mr. Garrett has created the situation, has created Colin as he is now, and has cucked Carlin, right? Because he's the one who castrates Darren. He's the one who kills him. He's the one who's naked with him and feels the energy of virility. And of course, he feeds him, and of course, he gives him an Ethiopian coffee. And of course, he spits it out, which is a beautiful touch. A burnt face, Ethiopian, I think, literally means burnt face. And really, right afterwards, he starts torching the body with a blowtorch, I believe, which is just a beautiful little.
He torches the balls.
The balls.
He cuts off Darren's dick, lights them on fire, and then shoves them in dead Darren's mouth, and says,
"Ball gag."
Ball gag.
Yeah,
it's like
he's straight out of Evil Dead. Like Garrett, he.
I mean, that was almost a Norm Macdonald.
Yeah,
it's like, dude, it's like, but it's like Turd Ferguson, Norm Macdonald.
Dude, I could see him play. I could see him playing Mr. Garrett because he would do great with the proverbs.
It's funny. Ball gag.
This guy over here, he loves ball gags. Tell about it. Tell about Darren.
Or the hand where he's fucking with him. I can Adam Saget as like Colin and Norm.
Bob Saget.
With the hand. no, yeah, his.
Adam. Right. Okay.
Yeah, imagine him with the hand and fucking with him. It's great. But no, like, I think he is the moral center. He is the Old Testament. He's like, he calls a rape adultery, right? And he says it, and he's like, maybe it's a mistake. No, he harps on it. It's spelled with purpose. Everything he says is with purpose. Is 100% to the point. This is adultery, kid. He's his therapist in a weird sense. No, his father in a real sense. He is the judge, and he even says, "Dude, like, what? You're crazy. Why the fuck did you do this?" And he says it very simply. I wanted to his father fucked my wife, but more importantly, I wanted to keep that this system of the universe, my little part of the universe. I wanted to do something good, and I 100% believe that's 100% unironically, unpretentiously sincere, and it kind of adds a layer to that quote I started off with, where he says, "God bless you, Mr. Garrett, you lunatic, by Christ and by Cthulhu," or Christ and Cthulhu, right? Because the religion plays both parts. You got yet again, it's oddly a better version of the kindness, right? Because you have the ending, he is blessed by virility, by vitality, by the disgust, the sexuality, all of this swarms, all the bodily pleasures and the bodily vices, and literally in a temple of meat, of flesh, right, which is a butcher shop. A fusion both of the consumption of meat, of the handling of meat, with also of old religions. Even being a butcher was considered unclean and viceful, by the way, and also the fusing of sexuality, and also his impotence.
I'm tapping out now, by the way. We'll wind it up in the next 2 minutes, and then do read out.
I'm sorry. I told that's why I said for y'all to. That's why I was so cool. I let y'all go first.
Yeah,
right?
I think we've read this one down.
The last bloody nubbin, the last bloody ball in the mouth.
Yeah, last of the nubbin.
All right. Well.
All right. I'll wrap it up. I swear. I'll wrap
sorry,
it up.
Sorry, Gabe. I think you've had enough.
Cutting you off.
No, I got drunk. I got drunk in Lovecraft.
My Dionysian vagina. We should do. Tom's comment about the Twitter space or live reading. We should have Gabe read that poem from the story.
It would be fun. No? It would be fun. I would definitely pour my soul
from
into
Lovecraft. The
maybe
it's not a poem. The whatever it is, the romantic letter.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they haven't had that space.
We'll host it. We'll start it. But that's the first part one. I don't know how we're going to figure out how we're going to do it, but there will be a part 2 for sure.
and
3.
4.
Oh, I don't. That's just the show now. It's just.
We need to get still reading Passage Price.
Yeah.
Okay. Poetry books are long. That's what we doing. Poetry coverage is long.
A 4-line poem requires an hour.
Yeah, let's just call it there. Thank you, guys. Another stimulating conversation. I love you. Tom, I wish you were still here. Love you the most. Have a good night.
R.I.P. Tom.
Bye. We love you. We love you, Mr. Garrett.
Be my daddy, Mr. Garrett.
Good night. He doesn't bring it up the fact. Meredith brings up the fact that he is like the black Egyptian from Nigga-Hotep, or whatever the demon's called, right? The creeping darkness god, right? I'll just call him Hotep for right now.